Hello and welcome to the Mighty Dave and Ari show. I'm your host, Dave Ball, also known as Blinson on Reddit and @Blinson1 on Twitter. And today I am joined by LA Kings Dave here, as he's known on both Twitter and Reddit. And later we should be being joined by Ari. We're not quite sure where she is right now, but we will see. You're a little quiet there. 1 second, let me turn you up.
Oh no, sorry, I was just not talking too loudly.
Okay, that could be it then. But yes, we have a pretty good show for us all today. I guess we'll hop right into it unless you wanted to cover anything first.
No, I'm good.
First topic we kind of want to cover is PK Subban got fined a $3,000 for embellishment for the second fine, but his third offense.
That's embarrassing. At this point, I'm sorry. Like once, I understand. Twice, even. The third time, come on, bro.
Yeah, there's kind of a limit when people see that. I mean, he's gonna obviously be known as a diver, even though he already was beforehand. But now there's no way Canadians fans can just say no, he's not a diver, when he got caught with it 3 times now. So
Diving is one of those things that I feel is usually pretty unnecessary. There's times where I could almost justify it because there's the whole saying if you aren't cheating, you aren't trying, and things like that. That's fine. Like, let's say it's the playoffs or something, and you're trying to draw a penalty. Sure, I would understand that, but just doing it on the regular, this third time in regular season, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan.
I mean, for this, it's not he didn't dive. He didn't try to make a penalty out of nothing. He got embellishment, so that means there was a penalty originally. He just tried to make it look worse and noticeable, which I don't really understand. I mean, I don't really understand trying to make it more noticeable. I guess because that's more of a chance to get the embellishment penalty now and get rid of the penalty.
Well, because it does lead to getting diving penalties as well and other things like that. So
yeah, and plus now I think with this, isn't there like didn't they have a list going around of known divers? So he's now, because he got this third offense, he is obviously going to be watched more closely and have less of a chance to have like those type of penalties called for him now.
I don't know. I think refs will be on the lookout for it. Sorry, just dropping shit. We'll be on the lookout for it more. I just dropped that right in front of my mic. I'm sure that was really loud.
Way to be professional and drop it.
Good job. I'm sure the refs will be more noticeable with what they're looking for when they're roughing his games, but I don't necessarily know that for the most part it's going to matter that much because refs should be unbiased regardless. But we obviously know that's probably not true.
Yeah, I mean, we do see a lot of those reputation calls. So because of reputation calls, even though they're not supposed to be called like that, there's more of a chance for embellishment to be called on him now, really. At least that's the way I see it.
True.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a good player. He shouldn't be doing these type of things.
Well, also he leads his team into ice time all the time, so I guess he's out there more often, so you probably notice it more.
That is very much true. Yeah. So another topic. It's a really sad topic for today. Was it yesterday? I think this happened. Oh, Ari just joined us.
Sorry, I'm perpetually late.
Yeah, we know. Do we have to get the what was it? The HOSA alarm going?
Oh,
that you had for the...
On a previous podcast, we set alarms on my phone. So it was like 5 minutes before, like, go get set up. 3 minutes before, go get set up. On time, like, the podcast fucking starts now. 5 minutes late, they're saying bad things about you. 10 minutes late, they're saying bad things about HOSA. And then 15 minutes late, it was like, you are literally Scott Stevens. And it was actually very motivating.
I guess we're going to have to start that now.
Yeah, so you guys are responsible. At 5 minutes, you can start talking trash about me. 10 minutes, you can talk trash about Marian Hossa. And 15 minutes, I don't know, I guess you can praise Scott Stevens.
I would never praise Scott Stevens. That is not something I would do.
Scott Stevens was so awesome, though.
Okay, I'm not 15 minutes late.
We just get to talk
about
honestly, right
okay, now. This is obviously pre-concussion NHL, but and this has nothing to do with Paul Kariya at all, because I like Paul Kariya too, not as much as Ari loves him, but Scott Stevens is one of my favorite players ever to watch when he was playing. And as somebody that grew up playing defense, oh my god. And somebody that liked to hit people, oh my god. I wanted to be Scott Stevens and Rob Blake all in one, with hip checks and shoulders to the head. Like, that's... I don't know.
Dave, sometimes I think that we were never meant to be friends.
What are you talking about?
Too many things are going in the... Too many things we're just not meant to be.
Okay, you don't have to like Scott Stevens, that's fine. I'm just saying, like, he was a great player.
Yeah, you give him that. He was a pretty good player. Minus the whole, head shots and all that.
But that was fine. I mean,
at the time, it wasn't as cracked down upon. Yeah.
So it wasn't like he did anything really wrong with Lindros or Kariya.
Yeah. Lindros is obviously known to keep his head down because he was used to being the big kid growing up.
I'm talking to two people that Scott Stevens just destroyed players you love, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You destroyed our childhood.
You literally did destroy my childhood.
Well,
never got over that.
Birdbag's not here to defend his love of the Devils, so I thought I had to step up for him.
Yeah, I am a one-woman Paul Kariya fan club, so this conversation is the worst conversation.
Well, before you came in, we were talking about PK Subban getting fined again. Do you have any comments on that?
I haven't seen the incident that he was fined for. I don't know. It seems a little weird to me.
Why is that?
Or if you asked me who's the first player who's going to get fined 3 times for diving, I definitely would not have said PK Subban. I don't think he particularly... Maybe he embellishes a little bit more than most people. I don't think he's the worst in the league by far. Maybe because he's a high-profile player, he's got more attention on him.
LA Dave did bring up the point that he's on the ice a lot for the Canadiens, which is why it's probably more noticeable for him.
Also, that's a team that has a reputation that probably works against him,
That's true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Canadiens are kind of known for that, so. But they also had a smaller team, which is why they were more known for it. I'm not sure if they still have a smaller team right now.
They do.
It still is pretty small, yeah.
They don't. They're not one of the bigger teams in the NHL.
Yeah. They did get bigger when they got rid of Briere, but so.
Oh God, Briere.
Yeah. Anyway, we were heading into the next topic right when you joined, which was about Cap Geek and their founder, Matthew Weiss.
West, I think.
Is it West? It's like W-U-E-S-T, which is what kind of throws me off, that U. But he passed away. Was it yesterday?
Yesterday or early in the morning, yeah.
From colon cancer. Really sad. I know a lot of people loved Cap Geek, and it's a really sad thing for the hockey world to have him die.
I gotta say one thing about this is I'm sure many people that are listening to this, or you guys in general, might know who Total Biscuit is, aka the Cynical Brit, who's one of the most popular video game vloggers out there. He is currently going through the end of chemo right now because he had some issues in his colon as well, and he's only 30-something as well. So I would just say, if you, it's something that's very easy get through as well. It's like cancer that has a very high survival rate. And I know that a lot of men have a hard time going to the doctor, but if you have anything going on, dude, just go to the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks that this happened to him, and that he's an example of somebody that did some great things and died way too young. And I mean, I don't know all the circumstances of the complications of his cancer, but from everything I've read, it seems like this is something that probably could have been preventable if he'd perhaps gone to the doctor earlier. But we never know. I mean, until all the facts come out.
Yeah, I really don't want to say anything like that, because sometimes no matter how early you go to the doctor, you can't survive the disease you have. And so I really don't want to speculate about that.
Yeah.
I think that his legacy has been seen in how all of us think about the game. We never knew or understood the impact of salary as well as we do today, and a lot of that has to do with how easy CapGeek was to understand, how easy it was to manipulate and see and visualize contracts. He was a tremendous reporter. Obviously, if the details of all of these salary agreements were released, there never would have been a need for CapGeek. So the data on CapGeek was not publicly available. That was journalistic work on Matt's part. By all accounts, he was always willing to help. Dave Lozo published a great piece about how he helped him do the redraft of NHL teams from a couple of years back. He was never anything but friendly on Twitter, and I think we saw a great expression of a great outpouring of sympathy for him when the site first went down. And I know that everyone knew it had to be serious, but I certainly thought to myself, well, when he feels better, maybe the site will go back up. And so it was a big shock to me. I didn't know how sick he was. I didn't know him personally. But what CapGeek did for the hockey community really can't be understated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even when Extra Skater existed, there were sites like Extra Skater. There were other sites competing on advanced stats. There was never anything like CapGeek.
Oh yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think that the advanced stats stuff, a lot of people still don't understand. They're like, well, what's Corsi? What's Fenwick? You know, but with CapGeek, it was really easy to understand. It was laid out really well. It was a very well-designed website and up-to-date all the time. And it's very hard to find sites that were as good as that one for the type of information that it put out, regardless of the sport. I don't know of any other sport that had a site like that to begin with. I'm sure there are, and I just don't know, but definitely a loss.
Yeah. I know there's other sites right now trying to be CapGeek, like NHLnumbers.com. That's what I've kind of been
terrible.
using. It's not a great site at all. It's not as easy to use as CapGeek was.
I will say, though, that they basically didn't put a lot of thought into it, I don't think, because they're like, well, everybody just goes to CapGeek anyway, so. Because I think that they were actually around before CapGeek.
Were they?
Yeah. So they just stopped. They just didn't have the resources that CapGeek did in order to get information out as quickly, and their site wasn't dedicated to that per se.
Yeah.
So, like, there's other things within that network over there.
Yeah.
The Leafs Nation or whatever, that they do a lot of other stuff. So I don't think. Whereas CapGeek was just solely dedicated to Cap members.
Yeah, looking at this, the NHL numbers, they have the Royal half for the Kings, the Canucks and Oilers, one of Flames, Jets, Leafs. Daily Faceoff is part of their situation, which I actually didn't know. I actually really like Daily Faceoff. Then they have that Hockey Fights website. So this isn't their sole thing they're focusing on.
No.
Yeah, it's a really tough loss to the entire hockey community with him dying.
I know that War on Ice is going to supposedly. They already have a beta version of theirs up, but they're supposed to be getting something. I don't know if it'll ever be as good as CapGeek.
Yeah, to be honest, I hate War on Ice, so I'm pretty skeptical.
You just hate the website, or you hate the people that run it, or what?
I don't know the people that run it. I hate the website. I think it's terribly designed. It's really confusing. Its functionality is low, and half the time the information is wrong.
Yeah, it's just war-on-ice.com, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I'm looking at it, and just It just looks.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, it's very hard to just get on there and be like, oh, let me just pull up this Corsi number. It's this or that. It actually has a ton of good information. It's just like Ari said, it's not easy to navigate if you don't know what you're doing.
But also, a lot of the information that I've found when I'm looking at it hasn't always been right. So you have to be really careful. There was one point this season where I was looking up, it was like 3 a.m., and I couldn't sleep, and I was looking up Sam Gagne numbers because I have a weird thing about Sam Gagne. And it had, like,
I mean, how many people scored 8 points for the Oilers in one game?
I know. Against the Blackhawks. I don't want to talk about it.
Hey, isn't he tied with Lemieux for that record, most points in the game?
No.
Yeah.
No, he's not. No.
Yeah, he's tied with somebody for most points.
He's tied with Wayne Gretzky for most by an Oiler. But the record for most points in a game is 10 by Daryl Sittler, who did it with Toronto Maple Leafs. And for the record, Daryl Sittler is a complete prick, and he was given a copy of the video for that game, and he has the only copy and won't let anybody else view it.
That's hilarious.
I have to say, the amount of hockey knowledge you have in your head always astounds me. How you can just pull that up like out of nowhere that you know exactly who has the most points in a game ever. It always astounds me how you can do that.
All right, back up. Back to War on Ice.
Oh, sorry.
We're talking
We
about.
started talking about Sam Gagne, and we obviously all love Sam Gagne, so.
I know, Sam Gagne is amazing. No one ever will love Sam Gagne as much as I do, but that's fine.
He was the best Tampa Bay Lightning player ever.
I know, legend. Okay, the point is, one night I was looking up Sam Gagne's stats on War on Ice to talk about his Corsi, and they had the wrong number of goals, they had the wrong number of points in a season, they had something else wrong too. And so, I don't track games, I don't have the time or inclination, but I had no idea if their Corsi numbers or Fenwick numbers or shooting percent was right for Sam Gagne, because his points, his goals and assists were wrong, and that's like the easiest possible data to get. There was another point where I was looking up, I think it was Marian Hossa, and they had a shooting percentage wrong. Or like, they didn't have the official NHL shooting percentage, and the NHL shooting percentage was also what was on Yahoo. So either the NHL and Yahoo were wrong, or War on Ice was wrong. And I lean to believing the NHL shooting percentage.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually am really worried about the fact that War on Ice has kind of become one of the main go-tos for advanced stats in hockey, because in my experience, I found their numbers to be very untrustworthy.
But where else could you really go for advanced stats? I mean, the NHL.com version of it isn't that great, in my opinion.
Yeah, and they don't have a lot of stuff, and I don't necessarily believe their numbers either.
I mean, and plus they changed the name, so I don't know what is what, really.
You don't want to know their SAT numbers? They first said that they were changing it to SAT, and I was like, alright, first of all, if they had changed it to SAT when I was in high school, I would have just been extremely stressed out about advanced statistics. Second of all, you cannot possibly have an SAT score and not make it out of 1600. Come on, NHL. You had an opportunity and you fucked it up. You fucked it up. Why can't I have SAT out of 1600? Like, 1600 is the highest SAT in the league, and we're just going to have everyone relative on a scale of, like...
I gotta ask, because you're a little bit younger than me.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, SAT was up to 1600, but then, once I graduated, I know that it went up to a different number.
2400, is it?
Yeah, I thought it was 24, so is it back down to 16 again?
No, is that it's a classic score of 1600, which is math and reading comp, and then the other 800 is an essay section. So the writing. But when I studied for the SAT, we divided it into 1600 and 800. Mm-hmm. Like, we thought about the sections differently.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have to do that, so.
So it's technically out of 2400.
How did you study for the SATs?
Oh, friends. I took like a year and a half of classes.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they have specific classes for that kind of shit. My brother did that, too.
Yeah. I was just told to wake up at like 5 a.m. on a Saturday, and I got really pissed. That was my SAT preparation.
That's madness.
My dad put my brother through the SAT classes, but not me, and I kind of regret that because my brother scored like 1590, and I scored like 1300, but I never took the classes, and I was like, I bet if I took those classes, I would have really done well.
It's so important to learn the format of any test. That's the most. I think if you're in college and you're listening to this podcast, the most important question you can ask the professor before a test: what is the layout of the exam? Mm-hmm. What is the format of the exam? Always know.
Yes, always know that.
Yep. And if you're studying for the LSAT, I've got some tips. I probably don't remember the SAT tips anymore.
If you want to know, if you're an engineer and you want to know how to do the EIT, I can help you there.
There you go. Our hockey test prep. Featuring Dave and Ari.
Anyway, SATs, huh?
I don't trust War on Ice. If you have recommendations for advanced stats numbers that you do trust, if I'm wrong at War on Ice, feel free to tweet us about that. But actually, since Extra Skater went down, my use of advanced stats has gone down a lot because the layout is less easy to use, because I don't trust the numbers that War on Ice gives me, because I'd rather just say, fuck it, I know who a good possession player is, whatever. It's too bad. Someday we'll replace Extra Skater, but today is not that day.
Yeah. I mean, there's always new sites coming out trying to be the best at something to get the name out, so hopefully new sites will always come out for, like, a new Cap Geek and new Extra Skater. We're just waiting for that day, sadly. Yeah.
So, the Hamburglar.
Yes, the Hamburglar.
I love this story.
Yeah.
I love stories about goalies that come up and do crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I also love the fact that Curtis Lazar picked a burger up off the ice yesterday and ate it.
That is so gross. I gotta say, that is so gross. That has been sitting with someone all game. Just sitting there. You don't know where it's been. Then he throws it on the ice and you pick it up and eat it? Why? Why would you do that to yourself?
Because he's Curtis Lazar.
Alright, let's be real. Two things. First of all, Curtis Lazar is literally a beam of sunlight that's come to Earth. Nothing will make him sick. You can't make a beam of sunlight sick. It's just energy. Second of all, he's a hockey player. Look, we've all been in hockey locker rooms. With all due respect to Dave, hockey players are fucking gross. He's probably much worse than that in his time. He's gonna be fine.
Dude, I am sure whatever is growing on the inside of my gloves is way worse than whatever was on that burger, so...
Oh, absolutely. You probably have, like, drug-resistant tuberculosis growing in your blood.
Yes. I'm sure that my immune system is stronger because I played hockey and had to carry around hockey equipment.
Oh, 100% positive. I never got sick when I was a figure skater, and I'm pretty sure it's because my figure skates were fucking disgusting. Then I started skiing, and all of a sudden it was like, keep your ski boots clean. And I was like, no, I have like 7 colds a year. I'm telling you.
We're just more evolved. It's cool.
I rarely get sick also, so it's probably from my soccer cleats and all my soccer gear. But yeah, it's just I just find it gross, kind of. I mean, we dealt with the mumps this year. Do you want to try to get something else started going around?
Okay, to be fair, you cannot get the mumps from a hamburger. It's gonna be like.
We're gonna find that somehow the mumps are gonna start up again, all because he ate the hamburger.
I want to be 100% clear right now. That is not how the mumps work. Now, admittedly, if you eat bushmeat that is undercooked, you can get Ebola. But I'm pretty sure that was not bushmeat.
Anyway.
But Curtis Lazar probably has Ebola.
Hamburglar, Andrew Hammond, who I got to watch in action when he shut out the Kings, even though the Kings scored a goal that the goal referee decided wasn't a goal. Kid's been legit. He just surrendered his first 3-goal game, but that was after tying the record for most consecutive goals to start a career with most consecutive games start a career allowing 2 or fewer goals. He had 12 in a row. Mm-hmm. So Ottawa is now, since they beat Boston, Ottawa's now only a couple points out of the final playoff spot, and they look better than almost anyone. However, Boston, aside from that game, has actually been playing pretty well right now. So I think it's going to, at this point, Florida is 5 points out. They're still playing all right, but I got to ask, who's going to get that final wild card spot in the East?
I'm hoping it's not the Bruins. All because I want Ari to lose that bet.
So that is by far, to me, the most interesting race left in the game. I think there are 3 interesting races. One is the Eastern Conference wildcard spot. One is the Western Conference wildcard spot, which I'm sure we'll get to. Yeah. And the third that's interesting to me is the Central Division positioning race. So it's huge, whoever wins the Central Division. And right now it's very competitive.
I found the Pacific Division race also very interesting, personally.
The Pacific Division race is basically the wild card race.
That is true. Yeah.
At this point, I have to say, I'm super frustrated with the whole Andrew Hammond thing. I know that I'm basically going to be the Grinch right now. And
I'm agreeing with you.
But I think that Ottawa fans, I'm going to piss a bunch of people off, are by far the most annoying fans in the league. Every time that there is an Ottawa player that does something, I want to take that Ottawa player out back and shoot them for their own good. When Jean-Gabriel Pageau scored, like, what was the hat trick against the Canadians in the playoffs? Mm-hmm. And it was like, Pageau, shut up, shut the fuck up. Like, Twitter was just madness. When Kyle Turris had a decent year last year, like, decent, right? Like, decent. Oh, Kyle Turris, hashtag Tesky Sens. Shut the fuck up, Ottawa. Every time Eric Carlson so much agrees.
I'm going to say one thing really quick. That whole Kyle Turris thing, do you know how that started, though?
I'm sure I did at the time, and I've blocked it out.
Okay, so there was a game. Mind you, Kyle Turris was drafted by Arizona. So he was originally a Coyote, and then he went to Ottawa. And they played a game against each other, and they almost never play each other. But Kyle Turris was all they talked about the game, and I think he got a decent game. And he just... What happened is that game day thread on Reddit turned into a worshipping of Turris in a sarcastic way that ended up turning into something where they just keep talking about Kyle Turris from that. So that it's supposed to be kind of funny, but at this point it's turned into something that's you're beating a dead horse. So
but it's every player on the Ottawa Senators. It drives me mad on a good day. But the whole thing about Hammond is that it's clearly unsustainable, his save percentage. He has not been this successful at any level of the game.
I have his AHL stuff right here, so...
Maybe he's going to be a successful goaltender in the NHL, but he is definitely not the next Carey Price. Yeah. And so the fact that people are like, oh, he like hamburgled the game, all right, enjoy it while it happens. But last night, he let in 4 fucking goals. And people were like, oh, hamburglar. No, he let in 4 fucking goals. He didn't steal the game. He had to score 6 goals to win. That is not a goaltender duel, okay? Shut the actual fuck up. At one point last night, I was literally Twitter searching Hamburglar and responding to tweets. He let in 4 goals.
So much dedication.
It was admittedly not my highest point as a hockey fan. I deleted most of them. But do not go around telling me that he's still having the hottest start ever. Maybe he was having the hottest start until he let in 4 goals. He's not having it anymore. Mm-hmm. And get off the front page of our hockey.
Yes. I mean, looking at his AHL stuff, he is 7-13 in 25 games. He's a .351 goals against average and an .898 save percentage. And not only that, but he was the goaltender that the Lehigh Valley Phantoms scored 3 goals in 21 seconds on. He is not a good goaltender, in my opinion. He is on a hot streak, and as you said, the Ottawa fans need to just stop. They are going crazy with him, and it's getting really annoying. And
now, I'm going to say one thing before you say that he's not a good goaltender. He's obviously reached this level because he's at least an okay goaltender. And I will say, we've seen throughout the history of hockey goaltenders that weren't that great until they made it to the NHL. And I'm going to say, as somebody that played some goalie at times, even though I was primarily played defense, when you play goalie, there's only so much you and your reactions can do. You can play great at times and steal games, and you can, make dramatic saves and things like that. But if you read a game as a goaltender and you expect your defenseman or your forward to be picking somebody up or doing something and they're not doing it, which is the case a lot of times at AHL versus NHL level, then your numbers are going to be drastically affected. I've played goaltender like on a team where we were outclassed and my numbers were god awful. And then I play on a team where we're just average and I look great. So I would say that it might also be that his AHL team's just garbage, and that affects his numbers a little bit. So I would give him at least a little bit of benefit of doubt and not just judge it on this season.
Yeah, that is true. He does not have a great AHL team. They're in the Phantoms division, and I know that they are below the Phantoms, who are third. So I'm not sure if they're fourth or fifth, but they're admittedly not a great team. But so you have to pin that 3-5-1 and that 8-9-8 on him a little bit.
Yes.
Who's the other goalie on his AHL team? How do his numbers compare to that goalie?
The other one that's played more than 20 games has a 2.66 goals against average and a 9.18 save percentage. And then there's one that had a little bit. Hammond has a 3.51 goals against, while the other one has 2.66. So the other guy was better there. Save percentage for Hammond was 8.98, while the other guy had a 9.18.
So let's not go blaming it on the team just yet.
Yeah, because the other guy does have better numbers and one less game played. He also has 12 wins and 8 losses to him, and 7 wins and 13 losses.
Let's also remember that good teams can be sunk by bad goaltending. See the Minnesota Wild. So I don't watch a lot of AHL hockey. I watched my first AHL game in like 2 years a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know a lot about the Ottawa Senators AHL affiliate. But it certainly seems like, by comparison, Andrew Hammond was not having a lot of success in the AHL just within the sample size of his team.
Yeah.
That said, goalies are voodoo, and no one knows what goaltenders are doing at any given moment. So maybe he will be the next Carey Price. And in 3 years, you can all come back and say, haha, Ari, you don't know fucking anything about goalies.
But in 3 years, we will know that it wasn't just a hot streak.
But in 3 years, I'll punch you in the face and say, I still hate the Ottawa Senators, so it'll be fine.
I'm gonna keep this linked for 3 years, just so 3 years from now I can send you the link to this timestamp of this moment, just so I can make fun of you.
I do want to make it 100% clear that I am a totally unbiased observer of the Ottawa Senators, and I think they're the most annoying fans. Like, I don't have any grudges against the Senators, except for the ones I just explained. My team doesn't hate the Senators. We could not care less. I can't tell you what the Blackhawks' record is against the Senators. I think we do fine. It's not like we lose to them all the time. You guys are just the worst. You're just the worst. You're worse than Vancouver fans.
Whoa.
They may not be worse than Leafs fans, but that might also be a product of I see more Leafs fans.
Well, there's more Leafs fans than anybody, so.
Yeah, I am going to go ahead. I had an interesting... does anyone have anything else to say about the Hamburger Alert before I transition?
Nah.
I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day.
I do. Willie Mitchell?
Yes.
Called out one of his teammates for eating at McDonald's. If anybody knows who it is, he's giving them a prize, so...
Wait, what?
I'm just joking. No, Willie Mitchell took a picture of somebody and put it on his Twitter. And he's like calling out his teammate for eating shit at McDonald's. And he's like, does anybody know who this is? And you can't see their face, so you just got to figure out who the player is. And he's basically giving him shit for it. And he posted on Twitter, he's like, the real hamburger. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
So someone asked me a really interesting question the other day, which is... Actually, it was Jeff and Neely, so proper accreditation where due. But as a Blackhawks fan, you get a lot of shit for taking over other people's arenas. And I was just in San Jose last weekend at a Sharks game, and there was a lot of red in the stands. And they asked me, does anyone ever take over the Blackhawks arena? Which, if you've never been to a game at United Center, is a really great question. And both the Kings and Flyers have strong fan bases. So my question for you guys is there any other team where you feel like you're outnumbered or in equivalent numbers when you go to a game at Wells Fargo or Staples?
Not, no, I don't. Not that when I think about it, I don't think there's really much. Except for maybe.
Definitely.
Go
Go ahead.
Except for maybe against the Devils, because they're just a train ride away. I know they usually have a strong following, as do the Rangers. But this year, the only time I've ever seen us really have more opposing fans this year than we had home fans was during a massive snowstorm game, and it seemed like the Rangers fans were the only one that came out during the snowstorm. So I can kind of give that one the benefit of the doubt.
New Yorkers are hardcore.
Yeah.
We have a mixed bag. We have several teams that bring a lot of people, but for different reasons. LA is obviously known for being a city of transplants because the entertainment industry, everybody moves here. So you get a lot of people from different places. Obviously, Anaheim brings a lot of people, but they don't take over the stadium. I would say LA takes over Anaheim more than Anaheim takes over LA. Chicago and New York bring a lot of people because they're the second and third, or the first and third biggest cities, and they have a ton of people that live here from there. Detroit has a lot of people and probably brings the most of any team. And then Vancouver actually has a deal where they set up a trip every year with their fans and swing through California. So when the Canucks do their California road trip, they bring thousands of fans who take the road trip with them, and they go to all 3 games in California. So
That's actually really cool.
yeah. So they have a whole promotion that's coming up actually soon, because we're gonna play Vancouver in Vancouver. I think I don't know. I have to check the schedule, but I know that they're doing it right now.
That's actually a really cool thing for them to do, in all honesty.
Yeah.
Really
So
would
I would
require
say
something like
Detroit brings the most on average, but Vancouver brings the most during that promotion. Like not all the time, but they literally pack in maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people just do that. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah, for us, the only time I've been to a Blackhawks game in the past half a decade, qualifier, that I felt like there was some competition for who the home team was fucking Toronto.
Toronto has a lot of fans, though.
Yeah, I don't know if that's every team. I saw Megan, who's a Red Wings fan, just say on Twitter that it's Toronto for them too. Chicago's not that close to Toronto, but I went to a Blackhawks game against the Maple Leafs, and there were Go Leafs Go chants very much competing with the Blackhawks.
Mm-hmm.
These days it's so expensive to get a ticket, you don't get a lot of St. Louis fans or Detroit fans or Nashville fans. We used to get a fair number of Detroit fans. But now, who wants to spend $100 to go to a Blackhawks game if they're not your team and sit in the very, very top of the United Center?
Mm-hmm.
Not as much of an attraction.
Yeah.
There are also a very, very limited number of tickets on the secondary market, which discourages people.
We have Kevin, who is a Devils fan. He says the Rangers, because Prudential Center is 20-minute train ride from MSG.
I mean, all 3
I
of
would
them
imagine that.
Yeah.
I know that the Islanders have the same issue in general. Obviously, a lot of Rangers fans go to Islanders games.
The Rangers have recently had the same issue, which is that the Rangers-Islanders game in MSG this year was packed with blue and orange.
I imagine it's going to get better because the Islanders are a much better team right now. Tavares is awesome. He's winning. What's that?
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's in the discussion. Well, he's in the race for the Art Ross, and they're in the race for the division title. So, and they're moving to Brooklyn, so they're going to get a whole new fan base there as well. So I think that obviously those 3 teams you would get that a lot. I know that Arizona gets a ton of Chicago fans because a lot of Midwestern people spend the winter down there and always have. The same thing goes for basketball and football in Arizona. A lot of people. What's that?
Florida gets a lot of Chicago and Minnesota fans because of the snowbirds, and obviously Canadian fans.
Yeah.
I am going to the Rangers-Devils game in Madison Square Garden in a couple of weeks, and I'm hoping to see some red.
Yeah. I know that they do get a lot of players up there. I mean, the Devils are kind of in a spot where they got a lot of players from their division, a lot of fans from their opposing division people, because they are really right in the center of Philadelphia right below them, which is just a half-hour train ride that I went to the Prudential Center before, and it's just I drive over to New Jersey, hop on my train in Hamilton, and ride it up, and it puts you 3 blocks outside the stadium. And then you have the Rangers and the Islanders right there, so they kind of aren't in a good spot to try to get any of their fans to outnumber.
We got Paul chiming in saying everybody, but particularly fucking Pittsburgh. He's a Carolina fan, so that's a little bit interesting that it would be Pittsburgh in Carolina. I don't know. Not really geographically close, but
Now, you would think it would be more Washington fans there, if
I
anybody.
think so too.
But where they're, because I know the Pittsburgh does have a lot wider fan base given with like their rights for TV. I know they have a larger area they cover, so that could have something to play into it.
Well, they also have Crosby, who's basically, along with Ovechkin, the face of the NHL. So it's kind of hard not to generate a fan base with Pittsburgh. Especially, I mean, you went from Lemieux to Crosby.
Yeah.
Come on, Pittsburgh.
I mean, they legitimately did because he came out of retirement, just so they wouldn't leave.
Yeah, well, I mean, he saved the team.
Yeah, twice.
So, actually, I have a question then. Just off the top of my head, without thinking about it, aside from Mario Lemieux, what other player can you think of has saved a team from either moving or folding or whatever else?
Well, Wayne Gretzky saved the Edmonton Oilers from folding because they didn't have to, by trading him. There's that, and he kind of also saved the entire California.
Wayne Gretzky saved Peter Pocklington from going bankrupt. He didn't save the Oilers from folding.
That's true. Would you consider Wayne Gretzky saving all of California hockey, really?
No, because
yeah, you guys were around for a while before.
He may have, but that hindsight's 20/20. But at the time, Marcel Dion had just retired, and you have to remember that Marcel Dion, when he retired, was third all-time in scoring.
That is true.
So it wasn't like the Kings didn't have a superstar before, but it just wasn't Wayne Gretzky. I mean, Marcel Dion was the greatest scorer of his era, but he played for basically a terrible team in the Kings. So, I mean, he before Gretzky went on his tear, Marcel Dion was the last guy to win the Art Ross in Gretzky's rookie year. They actually tied in points with 137, but Dion had more goals. And actually, Wayne Gretzky holds the record for first-year players in the NHL with 137 points. But he wasn't a rookie because he played in the WHA. So
I think you could say Rick Nash saved Columbus.
That's a good call.
Yeah.
Obviously, Columbus didn't have the history that Pittsburgh had when Mario Lemieux was drafted there. But without Rick Nash, let's say they drafted someone who just didn't pan out in that position, it's hard to imagine Columbus still being there. Even though the team wasn't very good when he was on it, Rick Nash made you think that Columbus was a team that could someday be good.
Yeah, he had the star status, and like he
could put Columbus on the map.
Yeah.
I would say it's a tough question to give it to one player. I'm having a hard time saying for sure that any other player saved the franchise. Rod Brind'Amour was so important to Carolina. Maybe you could give him that.
I don't know about that because they moved in the 90s and then they went to the Cup final in 2002 even though they lost. So they built some fans from that and then they won in 2006.
But they don't do either of those things without Rod Brind'Amour.
Rod Brind'Amour was
there.
there.
True, but you're not gonna move a team within 10 years after moving them somewhere to build a fan base.
That is true.
Maybe.
You don't move a team that quickly.
Like you have to give a team at least 10 years in order to build a fan base. So.
Well, then besides Mario Lemieux, and if we give it to Rick Nash, who do you else have? Who else do you have saving a franchise?
I don't know. Like when I was thinking about it right now, I mean, I wouldn't say
Like all the fan bases, like the players I'm thinking, all the fan bases were already kind of
I would say
there.
maybe Brett Hall in St. Louis.
All right, I can see that. Except for the
St. Louis struggled for a while. St. Louis almost moved at one point. And Brett Hall ended up coming in and being Brett Hall and being one of the greatest scorers of all time. And even though St. Louis still hasn't won anything, I think he entrenched them at least to be the number 2 team in St. Louis. Nothing will ever surpass the St. Louis Cardinals in St. Louis for sports fandom.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also the greatest National League team of all time in baseball. So it's kind of hard. Like, you're never going to find anybody in New York to surpass the Yankees kind of thing.
well, half New York hates the Yankees, so watch your mouth.
Yeah, but when you have when you have 6 million plus people just in New York, having 3 million of them still like the Yankees isn't. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know. I would say St. Louis is a team where I would be interested to see, because I know that they did talk about moving at one point in St. Louis back in the day. So that's somebody that maybe I could see that he saved them just because he gave them a face, he gave them credibility, and he gave them an MVP.
I mean, we're not done with the saga, but what do you think about Shane Doan and the Coyotes? Would you
No.
say he's kind of given?
I thought about that, especially
Yeah.
since I brought up Arizona earlier.
It's one of the,
I don't think that he does at this point. I think that he's a player that's been very loyal, and he's been very good throughout his career. Obviously, you don't play this long without being good. He's still producing. I think he still might hit 20 goals this season, won't he?
Guys, let's be real. If anyone has saved Arizona, it's Sam Gagne.
What about one person I just thought of? What do you think, Madonna and the Stars?
No, they were doing okay.
Yeah, but he kind of, entrenched them in their area.
Yeah, I mean, like, winning a Stanley Cup was good for the Stars. Definitely not going to argue with that. But I don't have the feeling that they would have moved or that they would never have succeeded without Mike Modano, you know?
Yeah. Understandable, yeah.
I want to be able to make an argument for Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, but first of all, they're not one player. Second of all, no one was ever moving the Blackhawks.
You don't move an original 6 team.
I mean, original 6 means nothing. You could totally move an original 6 team.
But it would be a tough situation with how long they've been there and the history and all that.
But you're not going to move a team out of like one of the largest cities in North America. But also, that was really a management saving the team.
Yeah, with was it the Sun coming in and taking over?
Yeah, Rocky Wirtz.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
Did we lose LA Dave? I think we
possible.
may have.
Yeah. LA Dave. Let's say horrible things about his team until he comes back.
I don't know if I can. Half his team was my team at one point.
No one likes you, Justin Williams.
You're not clutch at all. What are you talking about?
Mike
Jeff
Richards
Carter,
doesn't even play hockey
should have stayed in Columbus.
Jeff Carter, you could have saved a franchise.
You could have been the one.
Dustin Brown is Gabriel Landeskog, but less good looking. Jonathan Quick is not elite.
Fun of him? Is that supposed to be?
Yeah, well, I think I'm making fun of Landeskog, to be honest. Rob Blake isn't even good at hockey. Oh, now we know LA Dave's in here.
Yes, there he is.
There he is.
Oh, that happened.
We just
we were making fun of your team because you were gone.
That's fine. What did you say about them?
Ari was making fun of the players. I wasn't, because half of them used to be on my team.
I believe.
Even though it was only like one of them now, technically, I guess.
I believe we said Jonathan Quick is not elite.
That's fine.
Jeff Carter should have stayed in Columbus. He could have saved the franchise. You made fun of
Brown. Yeah, Dustin Brown is Gabriel Landeskog, but not as good looking.
What else was it?
Justin Williams.
That's being really generous to Dustin Brown and his scoring ability, by the way.
I know. I'm more giving shit to Gabriel Landeskog on that one. And
I
then
kind
I
of brought that
said,
up too.
and then I said Rob Blake wasn't even good at hockey, just to verify that you weren't here.
And you also said Justin Williams is not good.
Oh yeah, Justin Williams isn't clutch.
Oh no, not at all.
No one likes Justin Williams, anyways.
Whoa. Okay, Ari. I know that we have our differences.
I think you just took a little bit too far there. I think you hit the line, the Justin Williams line.
Like you know that line I hit when I was talking about Scott Stevens.
Okay, I like Justin Williams in 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Williams can take it back now. Throw back Justin Williams. Vintage Justin Williams was the best Justin Williams. You know what? I like Justin Williams before he was cool, is what I'm trying to say to you.
You liked him back when he was on the Flyers. You liked him so much.
Well, Carolina Justin Williams was the best Justin Williams. Before he sold out.
Before he sold out.
It's a hipster joke. Don't worry about it, Dave.
You know that he went to LA mostly because they didn't even want him anymore because he was injury prone at the time, so...
It was a hipster joke. I liked them before they sold out. It's what the young kids say.
Is it? I'm not in touch with those young people.
It's what us hip youngsters.
No, I understood your joke. I was just saying that...
He doesn't think you're funny.
Saying that he sold out is underselling him a little bit.
I think he's just saying he doesn't think you're funny, Ari.
That's fine.
I do think Ari's funny.
Now he's trying to backtrack.
I told her that she should write for comedy.
That's true, he did.
Oh,
That was a great compliment. Anyways, now that Dave is back, let's move on to our next topic, which is we're going to talk about what coaches are on the way out.
Yes. If the Sharks don't make the playoffs, he's obviously being fired. What's the coach's name? Todd McClellan?
Todd McClellan.
He is obviously on the way out if they don't make the playoffs.
Yeah, hopefully Doug Wilson also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole situation, he definitely needs to be on with how he's handled.
Yeah, I actually think Todd McClellan is a good coach. He'd be a good pickup if anyone was looking for one.
I hope he gets fired because I want him as our coach. I think he would help the Flyers a lot. Because Berube is obviously on his way out with what happened last night.
Really? What happened last night?
Well, he pulled Steve Mason after allowing 2 goals on 16 shots with 2 minutes left in the second. So it's kind of one of those, why not just let him play the last 2 minutes and start Emery in the third? And then at the end of during the post-game talk, he went and called out Steve Mason for not saving those 2 goals.
Whoops.
When one of the goals he probably could have saved, but he just couldn't get over in time and square. The second one he was screened by about 3 people, and he didn't get a chance to save it. And Chief Craig Berube called out Steve Mason last night, saying he should have had them, and if he's being screened, he has to fight through the screen and make those saves. And it's just, Steve Mason has been our best player. Why are you trying to alienate him?
Hasn't Jakub Voracek been your best player?
He hasn't. He's scored 2 goals since the new year.
Oh, okay.
Really? That's crazy.
2 or 3 goals, one of which was an empty net. And so I mean, he's racked up the assists, so he's still close to the winning thing, but he's not. He hasn't been the player he was at the beginning of the year. He's kind of just cooled off a little bit. The best way of putting it. But Steve Mason has kept this team in through everything, and he has not gotten the goal support. I think in his past 5 or 6 starts, we have gotten more than 1 goal, I think once or twice. So he hasn't gotten his offensive support, and he's still putting up very good numbers. And it's kind of sad to see, how they're treating him here, even though he's the best goaltender we've had in a long time. Which is weird to say if you think about Steve Mason. and how he was a Columbus.
Hey now, Calder Trophy winner.
Yeah,
Steve
I was gonna
Mason.
say he won Rookie of the Year, bro.
Yep, but he was also considered one of the worst goaltenders before he came here to Philly. As well
Yeah,
as
he should have
Charlie.
went.
Well,
Travis
I mean,
Wilson.
I think once again, we talked about Andrew Hammond earlier on a change of scenery and different things like that.
That is very much
Going
true.
from NHL to NHL. You look at Columbus, and they kind of just fell off the map, and they never have had very good defensemen. Well, I guess Philadelphia doesn't really either, though.
But which is what makes Steve Mason even better than
Yes.
his numbers. I mean, his save percentage is not
Okay, so I
high.
have a question though. Have you?
What?
I know you guys changed your head coach. Did you change your goalie coach?
He quit.
He quit recently. Did you hear about that?
It was
I
amazing.
guess I missed that.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
Jeff Reese and Steve Mason were very close. Jeff Reese is, I think, one of the big reasons Steve Mason was able to turn it around because they formed such a mentor protege type. Protege is not the right word, but they formed a really strong relationship with each other. And Jeff Reese took Mason's bigger body and brought him back into the net and made him more positional instead of reactionary in terms of goaltending. And then he just out of nowhere quit, saying they parted on mutual terms, which many fans think it was he disagreed with the way they handled Mason's injuries.
Well, so there was a Crossing Broad report, which is a Philadelphia sports blog, that came out shortly after that suggested that Steve Mason said he had been injured and said that he did not feel comfortable playing, and Berube put him in anyways.
Yeah.
And Jeffries told them not to put him in, and they did anyways. And last year there had been rumors of friction between Reese and management after they put Steve Mason back in after he got concussed.
Mm-hmm.
And so Philadelphia has this is not the first strike against Philadelphia in terms of injuries. It's not the first strike with Steve Mason injuries. And if the story is true as reported, it actually seems like a very professional thing to do, to refuse to be accomplice to that. Mm-hmm. That said, obviously we don't know the full story.
Yeah, we obviously don't. I know before Steve Mason came in, a lot of fans hated Jeff Reese, but ever since Mason come in, fans seem to have grown, have really liked him because of the work he's done with Mason. And it's really sad to see how this has all transpired, because everybody, the second he left, all the fans were saying it was because of the injuries. That's what we're thinking. It was because of the injuries and the way they handled it, which was terrible. I mean, Berube has the mindset of if you're good enough to back up, you're good enough to play, which is stupid. Obviously, he wasn't good enough to back up if he came and told you that he's still injured, if that was true. And I really want him gone. But yeah, anyway, you guys talk about coaches you think should get fired.
It's hard to say right now because I think a lot of coaches got fired early this year that you assumed would be, like Randy Carlisle.
Well, I think Hornchuck is gone.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
I think Hornchuck is gone for sure.
It doesn't seem like he brings anything to that team. Unlike, say, Ottawa fired Paul McLean, and they've turned it around. And they were worse than Toronto when they fired him. So, I mean, obviously, it's a different circumstance, and Toronto doesn't have an Andrew Hammond doing ridiculous things. But at the same time, it seems like all of a sudden Ottawa's buying into their coach right now. So,
what do you think about
I could see
Go ahead.
possibly, although it's really hard to fault him for this, but if they just want to start fresh and go a new direction, maybe Dave Tippett in Arizona.
That's what I was just about to bring up. So
he is a great coach, and if he gets fired, whoever picks him up is going to get way better next season.
Oh yeah.
I understand this, but at the same time, it's sometimes you just need a new situation. Sometimes you need a new coach. Sometimes your coach, he's been there a long time, and he's constantly had to fight through management, being different ownership changes, all different kinds, and he's handled it great. I love Dave Tippett. He used to be our assistant coach. I wanted him to be our head coach, and he went to Dallas instead. I'm a huge Dave Tippett fan, but at the same time, you just never know if a scenery change is going to help the coach and the team, and I could see maybe Arizona going a different direction because they maybe want a coach that's better with younger guys because they're going to have a ton of younger guys. Dave Tippett's a guy that I think could go into a possible contender and make them a legitimate threat because he's that kind of guy. I think that Arizona, like, I don't know if even Dave Tippett wants to be there right now, if that makes sense. Like, I know he wants to be head coach, but does he want to go through another rebuild again? Like, he went through a rebuild, and he got Arizona to the Western Conference Finals a few years ago, and then all of a sudden everything fell apart again. And it's like, as a coach, that's got to be a little demoralizing because you're like, well, I know that I'm doing my job, but management isn't doing theirs, and they're not giving me the players in order to get this team to where we need to be, and now they just sold everybody. So, I don't know. I think that he might go somewhere else.
I think that there have been a lot of rumors about this, and if St. Louis loses in the first round of the playoffs again, it's possible that Ken Hitchcock gets fired. There have been some rumors about players not being totally thrilled with his systems and with his communication with players. I know some fans have wanted him fired. I think he's a good coach. But, again, sometimes things aren't working, even if you have a good coach and a good team.
Yeah, every once in a while there's time to just part ways.
Now, to what you just said, Dave, if St. Louis does fire Ken Hitchcock, that would be a great destination for Dave Tippett.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I was like, man, Dave Tippett there.
Yeah, it's a great defense, a team that's ready to win.
So much.
Oh.
Ted Nolan might get fired.
I don't think so.
He's kind of talked back to management. I can see if management was done with him.
But isn't this his first full year there, or was he there a full year last year?
No, it's his first full year there.
I don't think he's gonna be fired at this point. With all the young kids with him, I think they're gonna keep him for the full rebuild and then fire him if he does get fired. Just so you have one voice throughout the entire situation.
Do you think Todd Melton gets fired, or do you think Todd Melton stays on because he's not the problem?
Who is this?
Todd Melton, Oilers coach.
I think he might stay, actually. They've played a lot better, and he's actually getting Nail Yakupov to play well.
Mm-hmm. They have played a lot better, and also,
and Hall's not even in right now.
If I was the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, I think I would take a solid look. Well, first of all, I would fire myself. And then once I rehired someone else to do my job, I would take a solid look at the Edmonton Oilers and realize the coaching is not the problem, and some consistency in coaching might do a lot for them.
Yeah. Instead of, what they have 7 coaches in 7 years or something like that, or 7 coaches in 8 years?
Or something like that. They were averaging,
I think it's 8 years.
Yeah.
About a coach a season.
Yeah, which is terrible.
Unideal. Yeah.
That's not a good situation for anybody to be in.
Unideal.
I just want to throw this out there that you were talking about Ken Hitchcock. He's obviously won a Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. He's the 4th highest winning coach of all time. He just reached 700 wins. He's only behind Scotty Bowman, Al Arbour, and Joel Quenneville.
I was about to say, you know who's third?
I do.
Once again, we are better at everything than St. Louis.
Well, didn't Joel Quenneville coach in St. Louis?
Yeah, okay, shut up. Not anymore. Yeah.
Screw you and your logic.
We're not talking about that. We never talk about that. We also don't talk about his time in Colorado. Okay?
By the way, Scotty Bowman also coached St. Louis, so...
Yeah, we also don't talk about that.
Okay, and he coached Detroit.
I'm fine with talking about that. St. Louis.
Your 2 favorite teams. By the way, Al Arbour, who's second, also coached St. Louis. So, anyway.
God, I fucking hate that team.
All 4 of the top coaches of all time have coached in St. Louis.
And yet they still haven't won a Stanley Cup. And yet they still haven't won a Stanley Cup. What about you, St. Louis? You're fucking cursed.
It's where coaches go to die, I guess. I don't know.
Joel Quenneville was reborn like a phoenix. Like a Blackhawk phoenix.
Actually, I would say it's where coaches go to get bored because Scotty Bowman, Al Arbor, and Joel Quenneville all started their coaching career in St. Louis.
No, Joel Quenneville started in Colorado.
No, he didn't.
He was an assistant coach in Colorado.
Okay, that's not a head coach.
If you meant head coaching career, I was going to say okay. But he won a Stanley Cup in Colorado, so.
Yeah. No, I meant head coach, sorry.
Yeah, with fucking Patrick.
Their first jobs as head coaches were in St. Louis. That's a little bit of trivia for you guys. Boom. Anyway.
And then they realized how much better life could be when you don't live in St. Louis.
So maybe Ken Hitchcock, since he didn't start his coaching career in St. Louis, will be the one to finally bring them a cup.
Yeah, how's that working?
I mean, they are in first in their division, so...
They are being better than you right now, Ari.
Ooh.
We'll fucking see about that. You lost in the division last year, too.
Yeah, but they're not facing you first round as of right now.
They might be. We'll see.
I said as of right now, this exact moment.
All right, here's a question for you guys. Right now, I want all of us to pick who wins Central Division. Dave, you go first.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Yeah,
I know. It just passed the buck off from me.
Okay. Well, I know that you're already going to pick Chicago, aren't you? So it doesn't.
No, I'm not
you
going to
have
pick Chicago.
a game or two in hand on both teams. So, I'm going to pick St. Louis right now because. I mean, not Jonathan. Patrick Kane's out. I still think that that's going to hurt Chicago too much. I know they're still won 4 in a row, and they're great, and blah, blah, blah. But
we're also coming up on a very, very easy stretch.
Yeah.
Our next 4 games are all against non-playoff teams.
That's true, but the Blues have... let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 games left. Of those 10 games, 6 are at home. I'm still picking the Blues for now.
Yeah, I'm picking the Blues too.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just like I mean they're 4
I
points
just
ahead.
like
I know that
team.
you have a game in hand of them, but they're 4 points ahead of you. And they have 6 games at home, and I don't think that their schedule is like that much more rough than yours to where I don't know. I think that they are going to take the division right now, and you and Nashville are going to play each other in the first round.
And no one's picking Nashville either.
They
No.
have the Blues have a game in hand on Nashville, and they're 2 points ahead.
Yeah. No, Nashville's falling apart right now. Sorry.
Yeah, they are.
So do you think that the Blackhawks finish ahead of Nashville or
Yes,
third
I do.
place?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Interesting.
Sorry, I watched Nashville. Okay, our friend Janetta was in town last weekend, and you met with Janetta too, Ari?
Yeah, I saw Jeanette in San Jose.
Yeah.
I don't meet anybody.
Well, it's your own fucking fault for living in
That's what they
Philadelphia.
do.
I'm out to California, Dave. Jeez.
Hey,
Anyway,
come to Washington. I'm right here.
Is that where you are right
I
now?
want to go to Washington because I love the Caps. But anyway,
I'm in Washington for the next 7 days, so you've got a very limited time span.
got you. Anyway, so I went to both the Kings and Ducks games versus Nashville. And here, watching them back-to-back, yes, it was back-to-back, and I get it. They're tired. They're on a road trip. But at the same time, Janetta pointed out to me they had like 3 days off before they played San Jose, and they dominated that game, but Antti and Niemi stole that game for San Jose. They outshot them like 2-1. Niemi stopped everything, shut them out. So whatever. So they outplayed San Jose. They come to L.A. L.A. out-hit the shit out of them. Even though we lost that game 2-1 because Jake Muzzin decided to score on Jonathan Quick,
It happens.
it
Right,
happens.
scored
I mean,
the other
sometimes
day.
your defenseman's just like, you know what, I'm going to put it in on you because fuck you. Anyway.
Timothy Brooks scored on Corey Crawford in the San Jose game. It was not
yeah, I
good.
saw that.
Corey Crawford was pissed off.
Like, LA legitimately, probably, without looking at the stats, I'm going to say they out-hit them at least 2-1. Like, not even close. Just beat the ever-loving shit out of Nashville. And Nashville, in my opinion, got lucky that game, and I know Janetta might not think so, and they probably outplayed us maybe in the third a little bit, but they didn't look like they could hang with the Kings. And yes, James Neal was out, so I will give them that. But then the next game against the Ducks, by the third period, they looked dead. And at this point in the season, like, I don't know if their conditioning's not good enough or what, but they looked a little slow against the Kings and got out-hit. They looked slow against the Ducks by the third period and just collapsed. Like, something's not right in Nashville right now. And they don't look cohesive, and they constantly look like they're on the verge of giving something up. Even though they didn't to the Kings, because the Kings' offense is spotty at best. Against the Ducks, by the time they reached the third period, it was like the Ducks just took over. Like, any team that's halfway decent at scoring right now, if Nashville doesn't hold it together offensive or defensively, they don't have anything else. I mean, Pecorine is great and all, but their defense needs to be their backbone even before him. Like, you can't just rely on your goaltender.
I mean, their defense is the backbone of their scoring. It is their secondary scoring. They don't really have a lot of forward depth, and it is the outlet for a lot of their offense. Roman Josi basically is their get-out-of-the-ice strategy.
And he scored their only 2 goals the other night, too.
Yeah, he's actually, during this slump, Roman Josi has been looking pretty good, actually. He's had a great year.
This slump's going to cost Shea Weber the Norris, in my opinion.
It probably, Pekka Rinne was already getting edged by Carey Price for the Vezina, but it definitely cost Pekka Rinne the Vezina.
Mm-hmm. And Shea Weber's been terrible in advanced stats during this stretch. So if any of the voters look at that, they might give it to him just because he's been so good the last few years and he still had an okay season. But I think that Shea Weber has lost the Norris because of this stretch. Like, he's their captain, he's their catalyst, and they've been terrible, and he's been terrible, and he's getting outplayed by Roman Josi, like you said.
Mm-hmm. So here's my prediction for the Central. I think there are basically 2 options. Option 1 is that the Blackhawks win the division, and the Nashville comes in third, Blues come in second. Option 2 is that the Blackhawks stay exactly where they are and play Nashville. I doubt that we take the second seed and don't take the first seed. It's like we're either going to do this or we're not going to do it. But that said, I'd be pretty okay with playing Nashville at this point in time. And especially if the last wildcard spot is the Kings, winning the Central Division might not be all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
Which just kind of occurred to me last night, which is if the last wildcard spot is the Winnipeg Jets, fucking bring it on. Right? I will play Andrei Pavlik until the cows come home.
They probably would start Hutchinson, most likely, but...
Sure, I'll play Michael Hutchinson until the cows come home, too. That is fine with me.
But as of right now, the St. Louis Blues would be playing Minnesota, which wouldn't be that, easy.
But that is the thing. No, that is the dream. Playing Minnesota in the first round is the dream for me.
Isn't it?
Nothing is better than that. Last year, we literally didn't even give a shit in the playoffs against Minnesota and still won the series in 6 games. Like, go back and watch the Blackhawks series against Minnesota. No one on our team is trying except for Nicholas Hjalmarsson and Corey Crawford. That's it. Like, Jonathan Toews very visibly does not give a shit about his, defensive matchups. Like, what are you doing? We scratched Nick Leddy during that series. That's how little of a shit Nick Leddy was giving. And he's from Minnesota. So playing Minnesota is the dream, but I doubt it'll happen. And if it does happen, we're going to have to get a restraining order on the other Dave, because I'm pretty sure he's going to kill me.
Hey, we threw out a question on Twitter, which coach will be fired in the offseason, and Blake chimed in with a gently used Todd McMillan. I think that that's somebody that definitely is a possibility. I think that with the Sharks, in my opinion, the first to go is going to be Doug Wilson.
Yeah.
Especially after this whole fiasco with, which I don't even think, we didn't even talk about that this week, did we? Because that was last week. We didn't have a show last week. So, obviously, Joe Thornton told his GM to shut up after he said some comments about Joe Thornton.
That's amazing. I just love that.
And he stripped him of his captaincy. So San Jose is a disaster right now, and I think that situation, though, all of a sudden takes the spotlight off of Todd McKellen, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, shit. All of a sudden everybody's talking about Joe Thornton and the GM, and here I am just doing my thing. So I don't know.
But if they bring in...
GM who decided whether he wants to keep him or not.
I didn't understand a word of that. You kind of roboted out.
I was about to say you went full robot.
My bad. No, I was saying, okay, so I think that this whole situation this last week took the spotlight off of Todd McKellen, and the first to go is going to be Doug Wilson.
Yep, Doug Wilson is...
Bring in a new GM, and then we'll see what goes from there.
Yeah, I can see the new GM wanting a new coach. Bring in
I could too.
Own guy.
But I'm just going to say, I think that he'll listen to the players first, because the players right now, after this whole situation, are going to be like, whoever the new GM is going to come in and probably say, you know what, I want to listen to the players and what they think of the coach, and what we need to do to turn this around, and if they still have faith in this coach. And if the players don't have faith in him, then he'll get fired. But if guys like Pavelski or Thornton or Marlowe step up and say, you know what, he's not the problem. The problem is you guys didn't do anything in the offseason to help our team out in the West, which is difficult enough, then maybe he'll stay.
Yeah, I think two things. One, the biggest problem this year for San Jose has been their defense. It's been absolutely abysmal. And we know, at least I believe, that Todd McClellan is not the problem on the defense. The system has been very good for a lot of years. The problem is the Sharks don't have the right roster. They don't have a defensive core anymore, and that's on the general manager. So I think that for that reason, Todd McClellan might stay. If he were a better coach, he probably would have found some ways to make adjustments to that and get around it, but I think he's still a good coach.
I mean, there's only so much adjustments you can make.
The second thing is that, as we saw in Toronto, sometimes in transition, you don't want to fire the coach right away. You want to get a new GM in there, maybe change up some other things in the front office, see if you improve then, and then if the team isn't improving, the general manager has another line of defense to say, well, the coach is still here, fire the coach, bring in my guy, as opposed to if you fire the coach right away and the team doesn't do well, it's all on the new GM. So from a personnel management standpoint, sometimes it's a smart move for a new general manager to retain the coach. That's why there was some suspicion that Pittsburgh was going to retain Bylsma last year. They obviously didn't, but when they left him hanging for a couple of days, that's what they were talking about. Just like institutionally, that's how that works in hockey teams. The best part about the Doug Wilson story, though, is that the ownership of the Sharks told Doug Wilson to shut the fuck up.
As did Joe Thornton.
Yeah, following Joe Thornton's comments, ownership was like, please stop talking Doug Wilson. And following that, Doug Wilson released a statement that is the funniest statement of all time. If you haven't seen it...
I actually didn't see that. What was it?
Oh my god, wait, God. I will read it. I will dramatically read it to you. Hold on one moment.
Well, anyway, while you find that, I just want to say, though, that Joe Thornton, in my opinion, has acted like a leader through this, though. Because even if you tell your GM to shut up, if your GM's in the wrong and the rest of your team knows it, I don't mind if a player steps up and is confrontational towards a GM or even a coach. Like, if they know that something's not working, if you really want to prove that you should have been the captain or you want to be captain again, I didn't really mind Joe Thornton saying that. I know a lot of people would be like, you know what, a player doesn't have the right to say that, or a player shouldn't speak out like that against his general manager. But you know what? You're all on an organization together. You're all working as a team, even if you're not on the ice. And if somebody's not working towards the greater good of the organization, then I don't mind you speaking up about it. And I don't think enough players do this in general. And when they do, they're usually called out about it, and they're said to not be a team player or something else like this.
Or uncoachable.
But look at some of the great players that have gone and done this in the past and stepped up to their GM or other people. Wayne Gretzky did it in L.A. When he got traded, he went to the GM and he was like, hey, listen, I know that you guys have some decent guys here, but you got to bring people in here for me. And they did, and they went to a Stanley Cup final. Obviously, you know,
that's one example, but there's other people in the past that have done the same thing. It's like if you really want to be a leader and you want to be the captain, be a captain then.
I mean, Rocket Richard was not captain, but Rocket Richard famously got a coach fired because it wasn't working for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
Keith Primo got Bill Barber fired from the Flyers in 2001, I think it was.
And I absolutely agree, Dave. I think that Joe Thornton took being rid of his captaincy in the absolutely most gracious manner.
Mm-hmm.
He was informed by the media. The front office didn't even have the decency to call him and tell him. And he still handled this with total grace. He's been gracious to the media. He's played great hockey. He's tied for 17th in points. He is second, I believe, on the Sharks in points. He's been great all year. And
let it affect him. That's the best thing you can do.
And if another player on the Sharks were being talked about this by Doug Wilson, Joe Thornton would stand up for them, too. I absolutely believe that. But here, that said, is what Doug Wilson said on where things stand with Joe Thornton. First of all, I love Joe. And Joe has got a lot of passion and heart. And he's had a heck of a year. He's played extremely well for us. All right, everything here might be true so far. I don't know how much Doug Wilson really loved Joe Thornton, but I'm willing to believe it. He called shortly after Joe Thornton told him to shut the fuck up. Later that day, and we had a great conversation. He said,
that's always the best line. We had a great conversation.
He said all the things that I needed to hear. You know what? I believe you needed to hear them. I absolutely believe that.
I see this as management walking down to me, not management, the owner walking down and just being like, here, read this to the media.
Wait, we're not done yet.
Oh, we're not? Oh, wow.
Oh, no. We're only halfway through. It gets way better from here. But I have this mental image of Joe Thornton picking up like an old-fashioned Nokia flip phone, dialing Doug Wilson's number. Doug Wilson picks up. Hey, Joe. Doug. Shut the absolute fuck up. Hanging up, and Doug Wilson going, great talk. Great talk. All right, back to the statements. He and I are at a great place. We're focused on the game upcoming tonight, which is a big game for us. It's one of those things that just happens. But he's a good man. He and I have had many colorful and creative conversations because we care so much. It's just one of those situations. But we moved on probably 2 minutes after he called me. That's where we're at. And that is where the San Jose Sharks are at.
Oh, that is a total management, like ownership, getting involved speech, if I've ever heard one.
Let's break down the best parts of this statement. 1, colorful and creative conversations. Oh, if only we could be a fly on the wall for Joe Thornton being colorful and creative. We know exactly how colorful and creative Joe Thornton can be. Mr. If I scored 4 goals, yada, yada, yada. My second favorite thing about the statement is it's one of those things that just happened. This is not one of those things that just happened.
This does not just happen.
This has not happened to any other team. It is chronically mismanaged. It does not just happen. What happens is that you fucked up. You fucking up is not one of those things that just happens. This is not like a thing that just happens is like getting cancer. It's a thing that just happens. Like, not because you're a good person or a bad person, nothing you can do about it. It just happens. Getting fired from your job isn't something that just happens, as you're about to find out, right? Fucking luck is not attributable to the karma of the universe, Doug Wilson. And then my third favorite part about this is we have a game upcoming tonight, which is a big game for us. Because the idea that any games matter anymore for the San Jose Sharks is downright laughable.
I will say, though, that they did win that game 4-1 again, but it was in Toronto.
Yeah, they were playing Toronto.
Yeah. But just okay, obviously, you know I'm a Kings fan. I'm not a Sharks fan. But Joe Thornton is one of the greatest players of his generation. He's obviously won a Hart Trophy. And... What?
Twice.
No?
Yeah, didn't he win it twice?
No.
He did.
He is the only player, though, that's ever won a Hart Trophy while playing for 2 different teams in the same season. He was traded from Boston to San Jose the year that he won the Hart Trophy.
You got the Art Ross in the heart, Ari. That's might be what you're thinking.
Maybe I'm thinking of the Art Ross.
But you're talking about a guy that's not only 4th in the league right now in assists, but a guy that just got his 900th assist. He's one of the greatest team players of all time. When you consider the fact that in the era that we're in, with the scoring that we're in, that he's played through most of his career, if he played like during the 80s, he would probably be on the level of like, maybe not Gretzky, but like an Adam Oates or one of those other guys that everyone's like, oh, he was one of the greatest passers of all time. The fact that Jonathan Chichu played on a line with him and won the Rocket Richard Trophy speaks volumes about how great of a passer and how great of a teammate Joe Thornton is.
I was gonna say he did win. He did basically win a Rocket Richard Trophy, in the sense that he got
Or Jonathan Chichu, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. So you're talking about one of the greatest players of his generation, and
2 gold medals with Team Canada, by the way.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to end up with 1,000 assists, in my opinion. He's going to get 50 assists this season. He's averaged over 50 a season throughout his career, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Even if... How old is he right now? I'm not even looking.
35, I think.
Yeah, he can play at a 40 with the way that his gameplay is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and he's
Yeah, he's 35.
a tall guy. His game has never been based on being the fastest.
No,
Even when he slows down a little, he should be fine.
he plays because he's one of the smartest.
He can see the ice so well. That's one of
Yes.
his biggest attributes, his vision.
In fact, I'm sure we'll get to this in a minute, but one of the possible changes for next year would be a couple of minutes of 3-on-3 overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Thornton is exactly the kind of player that is great at 3-on-3 overtime.
Mm-hmm.
Because people think about 3-on-3 overtime. Justin Bourne wrote a great post saying this better than I could possibly say it. But fast players don't need 3-on-3. Fast players are fast no matter what. Smart players need 3-on-3. Joe Thornton is going to kill it in 3-on-3 overtime.
I really want the 3-on-3 so bad. I would love that so much.
While I agree with you, I think that by the time they get a 3-on-3 overtime, even if it is next season, that's only going to constitute like 14% of games or something. Stupid.
Yeah.
So.
But just, I mean, I've seen it down in the
regardless
AHL.
of that,
Yeah.
Joe Thornton.
Yeah.
Joe Thornton is a player I've never hated, even though he's been on the Sharks. I hate playing against him. Not gonna lie, but he's a guy that's really hard to hate, just in general. He doesn't. I mean, I have a pretty good memory. I can't think of him ever doing anything super dirty or being in some way super controversial, aside from this whole situation, which, in my opinion, has pretty much been brought on by management. So
He's handled this as well as anyone could have possibly handled it.
Yeah.
The one thing that
Or anything, yeah.
a lot of Blackhawks fans don't like Joe Thornton because he always fights Jonathan Toews. But Jonathan Toews always starts it, so it's
But
fine.
Jonathan Toews needs to be punched in the face once in a while.
Hey now. Hey now.
Hey.
If any player on our team needs to be punched in the face, it's probably Patrick Kane. But you would have to catch him first.
No, sorry. He's an American. No, I'm just kidding.
He has the American pass.
After he did that heartbreaker celebration, didn't you at least a little bit want to punch him in the face? I wanted to punch him.
Because I actually, you know what? Honestly, I like. And this sounds weird because I don't always like the bravado of some other sports that are more about the athletes than the sport, like basketball. I think that's one of my biggest problems with basketball, is that at the NBA level, like I watch March Madness, which is going on right now. College basketball, I don't even watch college basketball during the regular season, really. But I love just watching basketball for basketball when you have good basketball being played, which is like right now. So I like sports. Like, it's cool. But I don't like NBA for the most part because it's all about individuals for the most part. And maybe I'm being a hypocrite here. I guess I am a little bit. But I almost want the NHL to have a few guys that get the same kind of recognition as your NBA or NFL players do, because they're showy. Like, I want a guy like a PK Subban or a Patrick Kane that's gonna be on SportsCenter because I like seeing that a little bit. My only problem is maybe it's because of ESPN that they do this with everybody. Like they hype the shit out of everybody in the NBA, so it gets redundant there. Same with football, but with hockey that's not the case. And I kind of want a couple guys that do that. I always loved Jeremy Roenick, even though he played for the Blackhawks or other people, because he was out there.
You love the guys with personalities.
Yes. And I don't know. So, but I don't want Jonathan Toews to be punched in the face because I like watching a reaction out of him because he's so serious.
But he's really not good at fighting, and also the head injuries.
Okay, anybody could get a head injury from fighting. I don't know. Does he have a history of head injuries?
Yeah, he has a bad history of head injuries.
Okay, then maybe okay, I still want to get punched in the teeth then, not in the face. Like, not in the head. Is that okay? No, I'm just kidding. No, I totally get that though. Actually, I don't ever want.
You don't push for injuries.
Like when Willie Mitchell was on our team, he's not anymore. I never wanted him to fight people, even though he's bigger than most people, because he had a history of concussions too. So I totally get that.
The funny thing about Jonathan Toews, though, is that he never wants to fight anyone. If someone takes down Patrick Kane, he'll fight them. And then he always wants to fight Joe Thornton. No one knows why. They got along great at the Olympics, as far as anyone could tell. They were on the 2000 and 2014 teams together. But every time they're on the ice together, Joe Thornton just gets to him. So I saw the Sharks play last weekend. I went to San Jose, saw them play the Blackhawks. It was a game the Blackhawks, first period, we got outpaced, we got outshot. It was tied through most of the first and second periods. Took a lead at the end of the second to lose them out in the third. Despite the fact that we were tied or winning the whole game, Jonathan Toews could not stop drawing at Joe Thornton. Joe Thornton just laughed in his face 5 times. It was there'd be a whistle and Jonathan Toews would just skate right up to Joe Thornton and start talking. And he clearly wanted to fight him. And it never happened. He's like, what is your issue with Joe Thornton?
So
what is he saying to you?
So here's my question to you. Maybe not with your team because you don't want Jonathan Toews fighting, but maybe it's a better question for Dave then.
Yep.
Or just the audience in general. Do you like a captain that fights? Because, Dustin Brown gets a lot of shit as a captain because of his questionable hits on people. He's always been one of the league leaders in hits. He has some questionable knees. Actually, he has some offensive knees at times. But
I like how you said that. Not dirty kneeing hits. Offensive knees.
yes.
His knees are offensive to people.
Anyway, but he will fight people at times. Especially Shane Doan. He and Shane don't get along. You don't like Jonathan Toews fighting. However, I personally don't mind a captain that fights, but there are certain captains that almost never fight. Sidney Crosby almost never fights. Ovechkin will tie people up, but he very rarely ever fights.
But when he does, he kicks ass.
Who's that?
When he does, Alex Ovechkin kicks ass.
Yeah, same with Zdeno Chara, I say, but he's huge.
Yeah.
So, do you want a captain that will step up for your team in the physical way of fighting, or do you just want your captain to be the best representation of your team as a whole? And do you think that fighting plays a part in that because it is part of hockey?
I mean, for the Flyers, our team has always been based on physicality. So having a captain that can fight is, in my opinion, not a bad thing. I just like it when they're more along the physical edge. Like Claude Giroux does have a physical edge to his game. He has fought before, and when he fights, he just kind of flails his arms. It seems like at whoever he's fighting. But I think it's definitely necessary for a type of captain depending on the team, really. I know for our team, because of the physical edge that mostly our team has, it's kind of something that Claude Giroux kind of needs to have.
So then, do you think that Claude Giroux is one of the most skilled players in the league, though?
Mhm.
So, do you think then that your captain needs? And why I'm asking this is because Dustin Brown's a controversial captain in a way, and I say that because he's not the most skilled player at all on our team.
Mhm.
He's not even the biggest fighter on our team. That'd probably be Kyle Clifford. Dustin Brown is an average player on our team. He's an average player in the NHL for the most part, aside from the fact that he hits more people than most other people in the league. So, your captain then, is he a representation of the best of your team, or is he a representation of maybe your philosophy as a team? Because Dustin Brown was captain before even our coach was our coach. So, if your captain's going to fight for you, what does he fight? He's if he wanted to fight for you, then is that, like you said with Claude Giroux, your team's scrappy, whatever. But is that a byproduct of just Philadelphia in general? Yes, maybe a little bit. But does your coach necessarily want that? Is he just doing that because that's Philadelphia? Do you think Claude Giroux should be fighting?
He shouldn't obviously be the first one to fight. I mean, he's not the tallest of the guys, not the biggest of the type of guy, and he's always obviously one of the best players in the league. So
But you
we
like to see him fight.
it is, yeah, we do like to see him fight because when he does, it would be one of those moments where he gets extremely angry and his emotions actually show. I guess is the best way of putting it.
So, speaking of emotions, then, Ari, like, I'm not even joking at this point, but literally, your captain is known for being unemotional. So,
But that's not true.
well, I know that off the ice, that's not true.
But
We
not
all
true
know
on the ice either.
that Taves has a sense of humor, and we've seen him. But on the ice, yes, he's shown a little emotion. But overall, let's be honest, he is not the most emotional captain in the league.
I mean, look at Game 3 versus Detroit. He took 4 fucking penalties. You know, look at how he celebrates when a goal goes in. Look at how he yells at players on the bench. He just screams at players on the bench. That's not an exaggeration.
So why do you think he has this stigma about him that he's Captain Serious?
Well, he's Captain Intense might be a better way to put it. You know, he's very, very serious about hockey, and during the game, he's also a lot better than he used to be. During the first couple of years in Chicago, he really didn't celebrate a goal or score or smile a lot on the bench or that kind of thing. He's loosened up a lot in the past 2 or 3 years. But you know what? I'm not interested in any player on my team fighting. And I'm not really interested in physicality in the game. And I've gotten in a lot of fights with people, including people who listen to this podcast, about whether that's a necessary aspect of hockey. I'm not interested in my team fighting. If there's a dirty hit, the refs will take care of it. If the refs don't take care of it, the NHLPA will take care of it. And the best way to get back at them is on the scoreboard. It's not for a fight.
I completely agree with you there. And that's something that Kings have been almost ridiculed for in recent years, is that when a big hit happens on one of our big players, we rarely ever go after a player that does that unless it was a truly dirty hit. And I like that.
Mm-hmm.
The only player that we actively defend is Patrick Kane, and that's because Patrick Kane genuinely can't defend himself.
It's kind of funny thinking about him fighting.
You know what? And come to think of it, I think the Kings would do the same for Marian Gaborik, who is fragile as glass. So
yeah. You know what? You can hit
and Jonathan Quick, but Jonathan Quick is ill-tempered, so
that's about the right way to put it.
I mean, I write for theHockeyWriters.com, and one of the other Kings writers wrote a piece about Quick having a quick fuse this week, and it's kind of blown up a little. And it's very true. Yeah. So everybody defends their goaltender, but Jonathan Quick is leading the NHL, I think, still in goaltender penalty minutes. So
one of my favorite things last year was I think they were playing the Kings, and Jonathan Toews was in a scrum around the goal mouth. People were kind of pushing and shoving, and Corey Crawford defended Jonathan Toews. which is not the way that equation is supposed to go.
No.
Corey Crawford was like, get off my captain. And everyone was like, wait, Corey, stop. You're really valuable. Please go stand over there and don't touch anyone. Like, please don't get in a fight with the king.
Honestly, when it comes to my team, I don't think there's anybody that can't defend himself on the Flyers, really.
I would also...
but like you said, the Flyers in general have always had a tough team.
Yeah.
And whether it's a byproduct of management, begetting management, as far as your general manager picks your general manager, and so on and so forth. I don't know off the top of my head the history of your management and your coaches, but it would seem to me, whether you pass that on down the line or down the line or down the line, I don't know. So, like, even right now, you brought in Ron Hextall, who's obviously an ex-Flyer, to be your GM, and so this is the trend continues. Yeah. Anyway, so back to my original question, though. Like,
actually, one more addendum.
Go ahead.
I think there is. Now that I think of it, we would probably defend Teuvo Teravainen too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would too.
I don't think he can fight.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, maybe a better question to ask then is, at what point do you expect your captain to fight somebody, or do you at all?
I don't really go in expecting it. Like, the only time I've ever really expected a Claude Giroux fight was the 2012 series against Pittsburgh. And that was more so I think I was really wishing Claude Giroux and Crosby fight, which we did end up getting, though it was a BS fight. I don't really go on expecting it, I guess is the best way to put it.
Okay, I would expect Dustin Brown to fight anybody that cheap shots Quick, or Kopitar or Gaborik or somebody like that. Maybe even if he cheap shot a Doughty. Like if it's your big name players, but once again, unlike say Chicago, where Taves is one of your two best players, and you don't want him off the ice, I guess it's a different situation in Los Angeles, where if I was Brown, I would stick up for Kopitar or Doughty and be the one to take that 5-minute penalty instead of those guys if they want to stick up for themselves. So maybe it comes down to that.
I mean, with the Flyers, there's just so many other people that can fight that. He doesn't have to, but it's always nice if he does.
Yeah. I guess I really never want anyone to fight on my team. You know, I'm not really interested in that.
Do you not enjoy fights at all then, Ari?
I like goalie fights.
Everyone likes goalie fights.
And I like when star players fight who aren't on my team. I'm not interested in Zach Still fighting Dan Carcillo, right? I don't care. Yeah. Stop wasting my time.
Yeah.
Play hockey.
Yeah, that's not fun, yeah.
But when Claude Giroux fights, I don't know, Sidney Crosby, I fucking love that. Who doesn't want to watch that?
The one time it happened, it wasn't even a fight.
Yeah, when Sidney Crosby fought Andrew Ferentz, I loved that. That was great. That was a great fight.
Do you think that would change, though? I know that the enforcer is being phased out of the NHL, but back in the day, so I'm in a similar boat to you, except being a fan for quite some time, we had a couple guys, like let's say Marty McSorley.
For sure, there are star players who can fight.
Marty McSorley was genuinely entertaining to watch fight, or a Donald Brashear, who Dave knows. You know, even in Chicago,
they have Dan Carcillo.
No, but he's not that entertaining of a fighter. There are guys that are genuinely entertaining fighters, and we don't really see that much. George Peros. Okay, yeah. I met George Peros yesterday because I was at the Kings Ducks poker tournament. George Peros was an entertaining fighter when he was in the league. So there are genuinely some guys that are entertaining fighters.
But I'm not really interested in that. I'm really only interested in...
Do you not think that's part of the spectacle of hockey?
I think it was.
But you don't think it is anymore?
If I had my way, it wouldn't be. I do think that people go to hockey games hoping to see fights.
Well, a lot of people still do.
Right, but for me, as a hockey fan, that's not part of what interests me about hockey.
Me neither, but at the same time, I don't mind it.
I mind it because I know what we're doing to these guys who fight for a career.
That is true.
We're destroying them. And we're destroying them, and then we're leaving them. And we're leaving them with horrible medical problems in terms of brain injuries, debilitating hand and wrist injuries, knee injuries. We're leaving them with bankrupt often. Playing sports is incredibly expensive, and we don't teach people how to manage their money. Teen doctors are leaving them with debilitating addictions to Percocet and Vicodin and Xanax and a whole trope of drugs to manage mood disorders and anxiety and depression and pain. And then we're letting them die. And so when you fight once in a while out of genuine emotion, when you're a player who's being paid $4, $5, $10 million, all right, you know what? I can enjoy that. Because if you play once a season and it's not against someone who's just going to fuck you up, right? I'm not really interested in seeing Zdeno Chara fight anyone either because he could really hurt them. Mm-hmm. Then that's fine. I can be entertained by Logan Couture fighting Mike Richards, or by Sidney Crosby fighting Edgar Ferrand, or by Joe Thornton fighting Jonathan Cage, except for that Jonathan Cage has a history of head injuries. But I'm not interested in guys beating themselves up and going home to die about it. And so I know it's part of a spectacle of hockey. I know it's part of hockey history. I know that the era of the enforcer that we have now has really been relatively short, that the enforcers we used to have tended to be guys who could play hockey. You know, if you think about the Islanders in the 80s, there were guys in the Islanders who could score a goal and then fuck you up. In fact, the entire Bob Bourne was like that. Much of the Islanders team was like that.
David Schultz was like that.
Yeah. The era, Drew McGinley is that guy, the prototype of that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Hall of Fame player. But the era of guys like George Parros, like Rick Ripien, like John Scott, is killing men. And I think it's a tragedy. That was very serious, obviously, but no, I'm not.
No. But I appreciate your viewpoint on that. And at this point where we know that, it's a different game. Because, like you said, Dave Schultz, Bob Probert, Chris Nealon, guys like that back in the day didn't realize this. So while we pity them now, you can't necessarily feel bad for them while they played because they didn't understand the implications of what they were doing at the time. Even a Ripon, maybe he did a little bit, which kind of makes you wonder if that led to what he did because he felt himself slipping away, which is really sad. Because there's guys, like let's say you take a Bob Probert or Marty McSorley. Let's say that they start feeling that their brain is changing as they get older. Because they're of an older generation, do you feel that they tough it out then? Because the younger generation now knows about these studies and now knows what's going on in their brain, and their brain is literally dying in parts. So do they all of a sudden become more depressed due to that fact? Or if you're of an older generation still, do you feel that that maybe makes you press through it differently in a different way, or try a different method in the way that, like, stem cell therapy or something like Gordie Howe just had after he had a stroke? And you wonder, a guy like Gordie Howe who played for so long, who fought people, played without a helmet, had a serious, very serious, almost career-ending head injury, got stem cell therapy, and is now doing better. So you wonder if these guys are going to try things like that because now they know this kind of thing.
I think that stem cell therapy still has a lot of clinical research to be done before we know that it's safe. But if I were a player who was facing down an infinite series of losing myself to degenerative brain diseases, I would absolutely try it. I think that if I also were someone who had made it to the NHL by fighting and was now looking at the research that's out there, I was considering doing what Chris Borland did and retiring. Chris Borland was a rookie in the NFL last season and retired this offseason because he couldn't think about doing that kind of damage to his brain. And I think that it's only a matter of time before there's someone like that in hockey. It was just recently I saw, it might have been Steve Montador, who was a former Blackhawks player and who died, possibly committed suicide, possibly overdosed. We're unsure at this point. Recently, his concussions were a huge factor in ending his playing career and certainly a factor in his death. And he had wanted his brain to be donated for research into concussions. His son was born like a few days after he died. And I think that I just read that researchers told his family that he wasn't going to live past 45 anyways. And
pause for just a second. Why did they feel he wasn't going to live past 45?
Because of the brain damage.
But, I'm sorry, but brain damage, regardless, brain damage doesn't necessarily kill you, because your lungs and heart and everything still work. So why would they think that he would die at 45 from brain damage is what I'm wondering. What part of that?
I'm not a neuroscientist. I can try and find the article for you.
Okay.
But
no, it's okay. It's okay. Continue. Sorry.
It's certainly if you have enough post-concussion symptoms, it can kill you.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that it's terrifying. If you, not only for enforcers, but especially for enforcers, partly because you play such a short career and you make such little money, and it really does take a lot of the enjoyment out of it for me. And maybe that's part of why I don't like to see people fighting is because I think it hurts my team in terms of winning the game. And part of why I don't like to see people fighting is that I can't not think about it. But
I definitely feel as somebody who grew up playing and watching hockey that now when I watch a fight, so let's just take for example, I went to the Kings-Ducks game a couple nights ago. And if any of you watched it, Dustin Brown leveled Corey Perry, and then Simone Dupuis decided he would take offense to that and wanted to fight Dustin Brown. And in the scrap that ensued, Dustin Brown lost his helmet and then went down to the ice.
Oh.
And he didn't hit his head, thankfully.
Okay.
But at the same time, I agree with you. When you watch something like that, he got jumped, basically, and the Kings got a power play out of it. But it is one of those things, because like I said, I met George Parrish yesterday. He basically left the league after hitting his head on the ice in Montreal. So you do still think about it a lot now.
yeah, and the enforcers are often roundly said to be the best guys off the ice, to be the most generous and friendliest and happiest and best guys in the room. And that's part of what they bring to a team.
But do you think that's because they're such team players? They're willing to sacrifice their body, basically?
Well, I think that makes it adds a level of heartbreak to it for me to think about the fact that these guys who, are that way and have been that way since they were in the minors and got a reputation for being that way, keep it up as, they become less and less able to do things. As they become, a lot of them develop depression or anxiety disorders. Fighters talk about feeling sick and scared every time they step on the ice, knowing they have to fight, being constantly worried about what the next game is going to be, about whether you're injured, whether you can tell someone you're injured, that kind of thing. And so I think that there's been a lot of ink spilled this season and last season and the year before on the death of the enforcer and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for hockey. And I know that it's going to keep guys out of the game who formerly had a chance to make the show.
But it'll help them in the long run, we all kind of feel.
Yeah, I think in the long run, maybe making the show needs to not be our priority anymore. As fans, as members of the community, as parents, as siblings. And so that's my take on it. But that was a long divergence from where we were going.
No, it's fine, though. I mean, we are kind of a free-flowing conversation podcast, so it's not like...
We
I don't
don't
know if
really
I've
have a
done-
set.
I mean, we have talking points and we have some sort of a script, but at the same time, I like where this went. I mean, I asked a question and it went farther than I thought it would, but at the same time, I really enjoyed it. So I think sometimes our listeners enjoy it too. So whatever.
Yeah, I think this is a good conversation. I just don't know if I have anything else to say about it.
I don't really either right now.
Yeah.
Although I do want to, for whatever reason, I pulled this up because we were talking about this earlier. But Jonathan Quick has twice as many penalty minutes as the second place goalie in the league.
Who's the second place goalie?
There are 3. I will give you each a guess because 2 of them you could probably guess.
Mike Smith.
Yes.
Nice.
And who else? Who
Who's
else?
feisty?
But Braden Holtby, he's kind of feisty.
Nope.
He's kind of feisty.
It's somebody else that likes to attempt to smash the stick, but never really does.
Rask?
Yes.
He is feisty. That makes sense to me.
That is actually does make a lot of sense.
Okay. Jonathan Quick has 16 penalty minutes. Pecorine, Tuukka Rask, and Mike Smith all have 8 right now.
Pecorine?
Yep.
He doesn't seem the type of person.
Pecorine penalties.
I don't
How
know.
dare they?
I don't know where I could look up what penalty minutes he has, but he has 4 penalties this season. So.
To our Nashville listeners, who would dare call a penalty on Pecorine?
Okay, actually, I think I do. I think he played the puck outside the trapezoid once. I think.
Oh, that's
happened.
a bullshit penalty anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Aside from that, I don't know. Like off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly what he. I don't know.
Pecorine.
Yeah. No, Jonathan Quick. Seeing as I've watched almost every, I think I've only missed like 2 Kings games this season. Jonathan Quick has, I would say, of those 16, he has 8. He has 8 penalties. I would venture to say 4 of those are unsportsmanlike conduct when he argues with the ref. So I'm really not joking at all. Like that's just what he does.
That's just Quick.
He's fun to watch for that reason.
You just never know what he's gonna do.
No.
Yeah, he's feisty. Pecorine is cut from the same cloth as Nick Lidstrom. And I know that's high praise.
Mm-hmm.
But they're both, man, Pecorine.
Yeah.
They're a killer.
I had asked originally when we started this conversation with captains if you want your captain to fight people.
You have some good responses to that one.
Yeah. Chris says for Boston, no, but I know he can beat up 99% of people. Yeah. Well, Sam Chara has a reach advantage on pretty much everybody. So, Terry says, you mean, do I want one of our best players to further risk injury and be off the ice for at least 5 minutes? No. Mary's a Nashville fan. When he decides to fight, I am 100% behind him. It's handy because I'm
also out of what?
Because you don't want to be, when Shea Weber gets mad, you kind of don't want to be standing in his path.
Okay, I guess that.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's helpful to be standing behind him.
Yeah. Cora says, well, I mean, it's something. I'll be on for enough doing something is better than nothing. All right.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes. And Paul says, nah, I just want him to take clappers at FNUF. And that would be Eric Stahl. So.
Oh, man.
Oh, and actually, Andrew says, Anthony says, no, if he chooses to, I wouldn't mind. Personally, I want him on the ice and the bench, not the box. And that's Henrik Zetterberg, he's a Detroit fan, so.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, Pecorine has a few delay of game penalties and then high sticking penalty.
Oh my god, who did Pecorine high stick? I hope it was like Brad Marchand or someone we all just hate.
Well,
Further
we'll probably
confirming.
take a few minutes for us to get the answer because of the delay. But, yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing. I don't know who Pecorine high stick.
Yeah, I don't know a site that breaks down what penalty somebody got. I don't know if anybody knows that's listening. If you know what site somebody could tell you, like I know that the NHL.com breaks down fighting with minor penalties. but I don't know any site that breaks down what the minor penalties were for a player, so it's kind of hard to.
Yeah, no, I think you have to find the game log.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's just so much effort.
that's a lot of effort. Yes.
I'll look afterwards on tonight. If you know, tweet us 10 points. You'll be our favorite listener for the night.
I know
Right
there's
now,
one out there somewhere. It's just
I'm sure there is. I personally don't know.
right now, Cora is my favorite listener of the night.
the
What a
Aria
great
one
line.
goes to Cora tonight.
You know, that's a high award. It's better than the Mark Messier. So
The Mark Messier award. That award.
I think we should get rid of the Mark Messier Award for leadership and replace it with the Brian Burke and Brendan Shanahan Joint Award for truculence. I think it'd be 1,000 times better.
Okay, so, but let's just say realistically, the NHL will adopt a new award. What award would you want to see in the league?
I'd like to see an award for defensive defenseman.
That's one I was gonna bring up.
I'd also like to see Marian Hossa win the Selkie, but that's not a new award. That's just remembering that wingers play defense.
Well, if you're both gonna go with that, which is also what I was gonna go with, I think so. That kind of
That went well.
then. Like I asked a question, I was hoping would garner some sort of response. All right, so
Well, I did. I gave you the Brian Burke Award for truculence.
Awards have changed a lot through the years. Let's just say like the Jennings. The Jennings used to go, the Vezina used to go to the lowest goals against goalie back in the day. And now you have the Jennings for that. Because they felt like sometimes goaltenders, even though they won the best goals against, it wasn't just because they were the best goalie, it was because their team was the best team. So, is there an award that you think should be created other than offensive defenseman, maybe?
Maria said that the Rene high stick was a bullshit call. It was a follow-through on a clear.
Okay, then.
Maybe there's an award for maybe like a best penalty killer type of award type of thing. Though that's more of a defensive award, I guess. We'll go to the best defensive award.
There already is a best defensive forward.
That's what I was saying. I was gonna go with one of the best penalty killer award, but I was saying it was already kind of won with it would be lumped in with that. So that wouldn't work. Honestly, I can't think of an award that isn't already one that's given right now.
I could probably come up with a couple. You know, the NBA has an Unsung Hero Award. That could be a fun, and some teams give their players an Unsung Hero Award. That could be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Best new, well, you don't always have a new coach in the league every year, but, you know, something like that to recognize, separate someone like Patrick Waugh, who comes in and makes an immediate difference, quote unquote, even though he didn't, his team still sucks, from someone like Mike Babcock, who, you know, deserves to be recognized for his long career of coaching. What else would I like to see? We already have a community service award. We have an injury award. We have a bullshit leadership award. We really kind of give out enough awards.
Yeah, what do we give out, like, what, 20 at this point?
You give out a lot, yeah.
And, you know, obviously some of them are kind of BS awards, like the Mark Messier Leadership Award.
The worst award.
Uh,
I have kind of a soft spot for the Lady Bing, but that's a pretty dumb award, too.
Isn't the Lady Bing for the one for the least amount of penalty minutes?
It's for the most gentlemanly player.
That's what it was, yeah. I know it's something like that. Paul brought up the Romaldo Award for Hart. The Tumble Award for Most Giftable Player.
Okay, that would be pretty funny.
And the Yager Award for Jaromir Yager. Just give him his own award at this point.
That is I would award the Yarmir Award, the Yager Award for Yarmir Yager every year, and I would look forward to doing it.
I mean,
It would be the best acceptance.
Yager's favorite player is Yager, so why not just give it to
true.
himself every single time?
Yeah, Yarmir Yager can introduce Yarmir Yager, who can open the envelope to announce the winner as Yarmir Yager, who will then give the acceptance speech for the Yarmir Yager Award for Excellence.
Paul also brought out the 18-wheeler award for the most Leafs moment in a season.
Dave,
The Luongo. What?
send my phone an invite.
Okay.
He's going to join us right now. Because Ari hates Ottawa fans, so we're bringing him in.
Fun.
Are you joking? You're bringing an Ottawa fan on just to make me mad?
Yep. No,
I just invited him.
but it's the fun.
There's also the Luongo award for social media excellence. And then the
Or
Burns
the
award.
Tyler Seguin Award for being the worst at social media.
Okay, well so maybe a better question aside from what award you want, because there aren't really many out there other than offensive defenseman. Is there an award that, aside from the Messier Award, because we all know it's bullshit, is there an award that you think is bullshit besides the Messier Award? By the way, James says the Brian Burke Award for truculence, so...
I just said that!
Well, he just said it too.
I said it first, asshole. There's some truculence for you. Yeah, but not just the Brian Burke Award for truculence. The Brian Burke and Brendan Shanahan Joint Award for truculence. We have to recognize the contributions of all the important people who have gone before us in this field, guys.
I would.
Let's hear Hamza.
Greetings.
How you doing?
One of the original Our Hockey Cast members is with us now.
Yes.
A
You have
man,
two other people from the first
man.
ever show.
a myth, maybe not a legend, but you are an Ottawa fan, and I don't know if you're listening to the first hour of the show, but Ari said that Ottawa fans are the worst fans in the league.
Whoa,
So
guys.
I would like your input on this.
I want to start by saying it's not personal.
So, I could only hear like two of you speak at the same time. That was really weird for a second there.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Yeah. Just to clarify, you guys can hear me right now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear us? Is a
I
better
can hear
question.
you, yes.
Okay. Did you hear what I asked you, though?
Yes. What award do I think is complete and utter shite, to put it politely?
That
guess
wasn't
we'll
what
go
I
back
asked
to
you,
that.
but I will take your answer on that as well.
Okay, so the award that I think is the most useless is the Norris.
Really?
Yes, and here's why. Ariana will tell you that I'm a Sens fan, therefore the spawn of Satan. But,
It's not. I don't think you're the spawn of Satan. I just really hate Kyle Turris.
whoa, why?
You guys are so annoying about him.
Oh, was that because of the, anyway.
I already discussed with her the game day thread between you and Arizona. She didn't know about that.
Yes,
I did
that
at the
was the
time.
whole thing about Turris. Actually, the reason why I think the Norris is probably the most useless award out there is because it means literally nothing. It's a circle jerk award given to the defenseman who most embodies the Canadian style of game and scores points. Honestly, as a fan of Erik Karlsson, I mean, like you can see my avatar right now. I think it shows Erik Karlsson, me dreaming about him or whatever. Shout out to Hockey Babbler for that because that was amazing. But I'm clearly a fan of Erik Karlsson, and when we look at the Norris, we don't look at underlying statistics and numbers, right? We don't look at shots against for or whatever the new NHL terms are. I'll just stick with Corsi and Fenwick and similar things like these. We just look
some
at,
voters do though.
No, but I mean, if you look at the majority of the people who choose the votes, or rather vote for the Norris defenseman, the majority of them, if you look at it, don't actually do that. They go over the eye test. And while the eye test is very useful, right, it's like probably, like as a hockey player myself, it's probably one of the most useful things you can do. However, how many of these people actually watch all the games and all the defensemen every single night? It's not feasible, right? Um, so I think that the eye test that a lot of people have doesn't work for an award like the Norris because it's entirely like a defenseman is probably the most important position in hockey. And I know everyone says the goaltender or the center or the wingers, or you can make an argument for any one of them. But if you think of it this way, the defenseman, there's the fewest number of defensemen on the ice aside from the goalie. Usually have one or two pairs play the lion's share of the game for their team. And finally, they are essentially the last line of defense for your defense, which is your goaltender. If your defense is no good, you'll notice that you're going to give up lots of shots against, which puts your goaltender in a horrible position and puts them at risk for having poor numbers themselves. So I think that yes, you can make the argument that for a defenseman, if you just look at numbers like the gaudy numbers, which are points, so assists, goals, and so forth, yeah, a defenseman can be very good. You've got a team like, well, I'll use Carlson because he's, um, perhaps the one I watch the most. But a lot of what's missed from Carlson's game is the fact that he's an amazing defender. Yeah, he's not going to wow you with a big hit all the time, but he doesn't have to, right? His stick is very active. He's going to get in the lanes. He's going to he's going to prevent opportunities from happening. And and then of course he's going to transition to offense. So yes, I don't agree that, I mean, a Homer Sense fan at this point would say, yes, Carlson deserves Norris every year. I don't agree with this. But at the same time, I just think the way we look at defenders is not the same way we look at every other position. We look at forwards and we look at their possession, we look at their shots, we look at their passing percentages, we look at their shooting percentages, and then we take into account their goal scoring, right? It's not the first thing we look at, except for awards like the Art Ross or similar thing, or what's the name of the other one?
Rocket Richard.
Yes, the Rocket Richard Trophy. I mean, yeah, that one is just a pure scoring one, so yeah, that one makes sense. And for goaltenders, we look at their save percentage, we look at their goals against average, we look at both in tandem, and then we look at things like amount of time they spent on the ice, right? We don't look at a small period of hockey and say, oh, you know what? Great, there it is. Whereas for defenders, we tend to look at only two things. We look at plus minus, which is a horrible stat. Anybody will tell you that. And number two, we look at their points. And I think that for a defenseman, especially, those two things mean literally nothing. Because if you take into account one of the, in my opinion, greatest defensemen to ever play the game, in Lidstrom, you look at what his game entailed. He wasn't a big hitter in the sense that he wasn't like a Dustin Byfuglien and even here, there's the image thing too, right? Where if you look at a person like, and I'm going to just segue really awkwardly here, but if you look at Nicholas Kronwall, he's got a reputation for, outside of Detroit, for a big hitter, except he's not. Yes, he does have those one or two big hits, but that's not how he plays the game. If they're there, he'll take them, but that's not what happens. And back to Carlson, because it's the best example I have. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
Oh, no, that wasn't me. That was my roommate's dog. Sorry.
Oh, okay. And back to Carlson, who's my best example, just kind of watching night in, night out. He got a constant barrage of, oh, Carlson doesn't play defense, whereas those are the ones that make the highlight packages, as opposed to the small, simple things he does every game. I just think Norris is, and this I tweeted to you guys a little bit earlier before you guys invited me on, is that I think that the trophies need to have, or the awards rather, need to have their purposes clarified. We've got two amazing trophies or awards right now with Rocket Richard and Art Ross, where what you see is literally what you get. But then you've got a bunch of other awards that mean nearly nothing. In my opinion, the Selke, probably the worst, alongside the Norris, one of the worst defined trophies out there, because it is a consistent bias towards centers, because they are, quote, unquote, the most defensive forward position.
All right.
And the Norris is, of course, biased towards high point getters like PK Subban, Erik Karlsson, and to a certain extent Nick Lidstrom, who was, a prolific scorer.
All right, hold on. Let's take a short break from the monologue for a second, because I disagree with literally every single thing you said so far.
Fair enough.
And if we get too much farther, I'm not going to remember it.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to start.
Go for it.
All right. First of all, let's start with the contention that defensemen are the most important player on the ice. I 100% disagree with that. If your defenseman isn't good, your center can cover for them, your wingers can cover for them if you have solid defensive wingers, your goaltender can cover up a lot of the mistakes your defensemen make. So I would say that by far your goaltender is the most important player on the ice, because if your goalie is bad, no one can fix their mistakes. You know, if you have Andrei Pavlik on the ice, you can't fix that. If you have who the Wild were playing at the beginning of the season with a bad Darcy Kemper or with a bad Nick Backstrom, you can't fix that. It will sink a good team. So I disagree. I think that defensemen are the core of any good Stanley Cup contending team, but they are never the most important player on the ice. Second of all, I actually think I think that the problem with awards is not that they're not clearly defined. I think the Selke is a great award. I think it's extremely clearly defined. The fact that a winger hasn't won it in a long time points to, yes, some bias on the part of the voters, although I believe Marian Hossa did come in 6th last year, which is pretty good. It also points to the fact that the way the game is played has changed, and that people are deploying wingers differently than they used to be deployed. Third of all, I agree with you saying that there's bias on the part of the voters in terms of not everyone can be watched every night. I think that's a flaw in all the awards, however. It's not just a flaw in the Norris. It's hurt Andrei Kopitar in not getting the Selke as often as Patrice Bergeron and Jonathan Toews are going to do, as often as Pavel Datsyuk is going to do. Because people don't watch Andrei Kopitar as much because the games are later for a lot of the voters. I don't think that's an inherent flaw with the Norris. And for any award we're going to vote for, there's going to be human error. You said that we've got 2 great awards in the Rocket Richard and the Art Ross, and those are great awards because there's no bias in them, because it's simply a numbers award. However, I actually think that there are some years where the Art Ross and the Rocket Richard are tragedies. When Sidney Crosby didn't win it 2 years ago when he broke his jaw, despite the fact that he was clearly the best point scorer in the NHL. So some people would suggest, and this is kind of a radical suggestion, that in fact the Art Ross ought to be points per game over a certain number of games, so that it can account for injury. So I actually think there are problems with those awards. They're not perfect as they stand. I like the fact that we use the eye test and increasingly stats to determine who is the best goaltender, who is the best defensive forward, and that makes those awards a lot more contentious and interesting to me as a hockey fan. Fourth of all, we're on 4, I think. Fourth of all, the heart of the Norris itself, and I'm going to stop after this one so that we can get other opinions, and you can, I'm sure you weren't done. I think that the Norris is actually not entirely broken. I think that the fact that a high-scoring player wins it does indicate that we have increasingly recognized that transition and zone time and possession are important parts of hockey games. I think that scoring shouldn't be the number one thing we look at in terms of defining defensemen. I think that we have a lot of other stats and eye tests, etc., that we can look at to determine who is the best defenseman. But even though it went to Duncan Keith when other people were equally good defensemen that year, I think you would be hard-put to argue that Duncan Keith was not a good enough player to win the Norris, even though maybe he got more consideration than other players based on points. I think that your contention that big hitters are what people look for is pretty misleading. Looking at people who have won the Norris recently, Duncan Keith can lay a big hit. That's definitely not what he's known for. It's not what Karlsson is known for. Not really what PK Subban is known for, although he can as well. He's known for being a transitional offensive player. So I think that what we're seeing is an increasing rewarding of offensive defensemen, which is why a number of us proposed that the award the NHL should add would be a defensive defenseman award. Separate out those 2 parts of defense. But I also think we're increasingly recognizing that being an offensive defenseman is better than being a defensive defenseman. That the idea of being a defenseman who only plays in your own zone hampers and limits your team. In the same way that being a forward who doesn't play defense can hamper and limit your team. So I think that reflects just some of the changing reality of the way we perceive the game and the way the game is changing. And that's why I think the North
May I say something?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I agree with both of you in certain areas. Here's my thing. I actually think the Norris is bullshit, like LaFont said. Here's why. Because I as we mentioned, and Ari and I both agree, there should be an offensive defenseman trophy at this point. Because Nicklas Lidstrom is the last great defenseman to win the Norris Trophy. And Nicklas Lidstrom is maybe, and I say this as somebody that maybe didn't get to watch Doug Harvey or Bobby Orr in their prime because I wasn't born then, but Nicklas Lidstrom is generally considered to be one of the greatest positional defensemen of all time. I grew up playing defense, so I feel like I have at least a little bit of a clue, seeing as I played defense, well, not at the NHL level, obviously, but you study people that play your position that you play in any sport that you ever play. So, Nicklas Lidstrom won 7 Norris trophies, not because he hit hard, and not even necessarily because he's always a great offensive defenseman. While he was a good offensive defenseman, and in some years he was one of the better offensive defensemen, he wasn't always the greatest offensive defenseman. He was one of the greatest positional defensemen, but he almost never hit anybody. And since he's gone, it seems that we've gone to the way, and this is where I agree with Fawn, that the Norris Trophy is now bullshit, because it seems to be keeping rewarding players that just score a lot. And like he said, he's a fan of Erik Karlsson, and I love Erik Karlsson, and he's a good defenseman, and I think that both he and PK Subban are better players now than when they actually won the Norris. The Norris doesn't reward the best overall defenseman anymore. So it rewards a guy that scores a lot and plays decent defense. However, I will make a case that there might be a reason for this as far as voters looking at it and saying that those defensemen matter more to their team now than ever before, and that scoring for forwards is down. However, if you look at the overall scoring of teams, the overall scoring around the league is not necessarily down in total goals. Therefore, the slack being picked up were the forwards, and we've had this discussion before about forwards. This year, there might not even be a 90-point scorer in the league. The Art Ross Trophy might be won by a guy that scores like 87 points. But the goals per game by teams is still, on average, with the last few years, meaning the defensemen are now more involved in the play and more crucial to a team than maybe they were in years past. So I'm just going to throw that out there and see what you guys think, even though I do kind of agree that it's bullshit the defensemen aren't graded on their all-around play and instead seem to be favored for just offense lately.
I'm gonna jump in here quickly and cover 3 things that maybe I don't necessarily disagree with Ari with, but I definitely don't fully line up with her either. Number 1 is going to be most important position. When I say the defenseman is the most important position, I should clarify now that that's hyperbole. There is no. I think we can actually argue there's no most important position, because you eradicate any one of them, the game is useless. So I'm going to get rid of that hyperbole first, because it is going to make the rest of the argument completely useless. Number 2, I think that in this case, actually, who do you think this year or last year should have won the Norris? Or should win the Norris?
Shea Weber.
Probably Drew Doughty.
This year,
Drew Doughty should win.
Okay,
I think this year Drew Doughty should win. I think he's been the best overall this season.
I'm going to say last year should have been Giordano. This year, if Giordano had not been injured, I would have said Giordano again. Because Giordano was injured and he does not have the requisite time played, I do agree that either Drew Doughty or Shea Weber.
Let me ask you one question and continue.
Yeah.
Would you have said the same last year if Giordano was hurt for the end of the season like he is this season, or unlike this season, last season he was hurt for the start of the year? So by the time that Giordano did what he did last season, he was hurt for the start of the season and played limited games towards the end. This season, he played great at the start and is now hurt at the end. Do you think that that affects what you're saying right now?
Yes. And the reason why is because it is recency bias. But at the same token, while you can't exactly say that games get tougher as the year gets on, because I don't know if there's any statistical proof for that, I believe that here the eye test comes into play, and that we can see that. I mean, if any of you watched the game of the Bruins versus the Sens, where the Sens won 6-4, the games do get tougher as they
Andrew
go
Hammond,
along.
quote unquote, stole the game. Shoot me.
Who stole the game?
People were saying on Twitter that Andrew Hammond stole the game, even though he let in 4 goals.
Okay, here's I jumped in on something. I missed the part where Ari was upset with Hammond. Could someone explain that to me quickly?
Don't worry about that right now.
That was the beginning of the show.
No, don't worry about that right now. We'll get into that later.
Okay, so I want to clarify. Hammond did no stealing there.
I know, we're joking.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not saying something that's going to confuse whoever's listening a little bit later on. That game was tough to watch both as a fan and probably just to analyze, because that's hockey that nothing. I mean, hockey can't really be predicted from moment to moment, but I think that to say that games get tougher as the season goes on could quite possibly be true. So in that case, I do think that someone being injured towards the end of the year, where they'll be more effective, or rather where they'll be more tested, would be something that is important, especially going towards the playoffs and either making the playoffs or just falling short, as Calgary did, or as Calgary may do towards the end of this year. But I think the reason why is because the team that Calgary is, and speaking of Giordano here, the team of Calgary is two completely different teams, with or without Giordano. With Giordano, they become a hockey team. Without him, they become Buffalo Light, where they're a possession black hole, and essentially they're giving up so many shots against that it is quite literally a miracle that they win games in this case. So yes, I do think injury towards the end of the year does matter, because an award should have, or sorry, your ability to continue playing the game as the year wears on is very important, especially moving towards the playoffs. Because if you're injured towards the end of the year, you're not 100% going to the playoffs, or you're rusty going to the playoffs if you make it, and that affects your team going forward as well. So yes, I do think that being injured towards the end of the year does and should affect your qualifications for an award of any sort.
So I think that what you said gets to something really interesting, which is that there is a bias towards teams that are making the playoffs or making a run for the playoffs in awards. And yes. I think that's why Giordano was not really in consideration last year. It's more important when you're playing games that are important, and if you're not playing games that are important because you're not making a run for the playoffs, voters aren't going to consider you as much. So yes. I think that for that reason, it's not a problem endemic to the Norris so much as a problem endemic to awards. Rick Nash never won the Hart Trophy when he was playing in Columbus, even though he was by far the most important part of that team. Carey Price may yet win it for playing in Montreal. But
I'm going to jump in here on you on the Hart. The Hart
okay, I'm not done.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Second of all, I think that what you said about games at the end of the year being more difficult is untrue, but also really interesting. I think that games that are hard are always games that are hard. You know, Chicago is always going to play St. Louis hard. I also think that games at the end of the year, there are a lot of games that are easy. If you look at Buffalo played New Jersey, right? That's not a hard game. New York team is trying, realistically. Last night I watched Colorado play Arizona, and the game fucking sucked. So I think actually at the end of the year, you have a lot of games that are easier than they are at the start of the year, because a lot of teams don't have hope anymore. They're playing out the stretch. So I actually suspect there might be some games that would be mediocre at the beginning of the year that are now much more intense. I suspect games at the end of the year, on average, are easier. And third thing, I do want to defend Duncan Keith winning the Norris here last year. Mark Giordano was incredible last year, don't get me wrong. But I think we have to consider not only numbers offensively, not only Corsi, not only Fenwick, but also look at how integral they are to a team strategy. So that's one of the reasons that I think a guy like Erik Karlsson or a guy like Duncan Keith is going to be in contention for the Norris for a long time, because you don't have a defensive, or Roman Josi, to be honest, would be a good example of this, because he's a huge part of how the team plays the rest of their game. And I think that's how we have to conceptualize defense these days, is how does it fit into the overall strategy. And Duncan Keith is a huge part of the Blackhawks' overall strategy. I won't go into it. You guys know.
I want to ask you a quick question here and get your opinion. How do you feel about players who are essential to their team and have no supporting cast?
For
Well,
what
actually-
though? For what are you asking though? Because like she brought up Rick Nash earlier, who was his team in Columbus, but at what point? It's hard to gauge then because he's put out for every situation at all times. So let's say that if he dominates, like, you know, she's talking on him for Hart Trophy back when he played in Columbus, but it's hard to gauge because he never put up numbers for that. And you're like, well, if he played on a better team, he would have, but you don't know that necessarily. So this is all what ifs and whatnot. So
No, I'm looking. Okay, I'm looking here on a year-to-year basis. So a team with, or rather a team, a player within the context of their team, not a player in context of what they could be if they were somewhere else. That's what I'm asking.
Let me lay out.
This is one thing that bothered me about Duncan Keith winning the Norris last year, and this is no disrespect to Chicago fans. I think Duncan Keith's a great defenseman. I think I didn't really have a problem with him winning in 2010, but last season I felt like he won because of the strength of his team and the strength of the fact that he had. I would have to look it up, but I know that he had. Last season, he had 50-plus assists.
Yeah, he led all defense.
He had less than 10 goals. And, like, it was something ridiculous. Like, over 50% of those assists, I know, were secondary assists. So, it's one of those things where it's like, yes, Duncan Keith is a great defenseman. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from the fact that Duncan Keith is a great defenseman. The fact that he won the Norris last trophy bothered me because he won it based on his offensive statistics on a really good team when he had a ton of secondary assists. That bothers me.
Here's the issue.
Duncan Keith was actually better in 2013 than he was in 2010.
I'm gonna jump in on
he had
you.
a better. Okay.
Yeah. The reason why I'm going to jump on you in defense of Duncan Keith for Norris here is because secondary assists mean something that has actually three different meanings, or I'll stick with two for now. One, that because you either have a garbage secondary assist where you chip the puck out of the zone and it takes a weird bounce, jumps on someone else's stick, and then someone else gets it, or they could be integral in the play with a setup that is unreal, perhaps a cross crease pass, and then it bounces off someone else, and then the third guy touches it. So yes, secondary assists may not be as may appear to be or not appear to be as important as primary assists, but I don't think that is necessarily an argument against Duncan Keith winning the Norris. I do disagree with Duncan winning last year, mostly because of the strength of his team, and he wasn't, in my opinion, the best defender. I'd have to look the numbers up again, but I don't think necessarily that secondary assists are something that should be disregarded or not counted towards assists in general. So I believe, yeah, there can be an argument that maybe, possibly, some of the time, they're not as important, but that can be said about literally anything in the game.
I mean, I think the point that Dave is making is that when you play on a talented team, secondary assists don't matter as much. But Dave, I would actually disagree with you because...
Off the top of my head, I'm going to look it up right now, but I'm pretty sure they had the first or second highest scoring team last season.
Okay, well, while you look that up, let me say that the Blackhawks were a better team in 2010, and Duncan Keith had far more defensive support, freeing him up to be a more offensive player in 2010 than he did in 2013. So I actually think that if you're going to choose one of those years to be impressed with his defensive accomplishments, 2013 would be the year for him to win the Norris.
Oh, absolutely. I do think we should be friends with him.
To get back to the question that you had asked, Wafan, which was about players who are the most valuable to their team, I think if there's any award that needs clarification, it is the Hart Trophy. Because there are two ways to interpret the Hart Trophy. This might take me a minute to lay out, so bear with me. The first way to interpret the Hart Trophy is who is the most valuable player in the league. If you were going to start a draft today, who is the player you would draft?
Sidney Crosby.
Right. And so that's the basis on which Sidney Crosby has won a whole bunch of these awards. The basis on which Alex Ovechkin has won a whole bunch of these awards. And it's the basis on which Carey Price might win it today. However, the other way to interpret the Hart Trophy is what player is the most valuable player to their team. So this is also, frankly, a rationale for Carey Price to win the Hart Trophy. But last year, Sidney Crosby was not the most valuable player to the Penguins, not more valuable to the Penguins than, let's say...
Claude Giroux to the Flyers last year was the biggest person that everyone was kind of screaming about.
Yeah, exactly. Claude Giroux is a great example. Or Joe Thornton to the Sharks. Or Mark Giordano to the Flames.
Agreed.
So if I were going to switch any award, in fact, maybe more than I care about changing the qualifications for the Norris Award, I would try and define more clearly what the Hart Trophy is. Because is the Hart Trophy, which of those players is the Hart Trophy supposed to go to? It's great when it lines up. This year, I think it is lining up on Carey Price. I'd be surprised if he doesn't win it. But it doesn't always.
Yeah.
So that is my answer to what do you do about players that are the most valuable to their team. I think that players at the high end of the spectrum, it's pretty clear what they're capable of. I'm not worried about, oh, well, if he was on a better team, he'd have more points. If you have to get to that logic, they're not winning the Hart Trophy.
I'm gonna step back for a second and say maybe I underestimated Keith a little bit because the 2 years he won the Norris, Chicago finished second in scoring both seasons. So maybe he did play a more integral role last year than I gave him credit for.
I understand the logic for people saying Mark Giordano should have won. No question he had an amazing year. But I really think Duncan Keith deserves the Norris.
Like I said, I'll step back just a little bit on my speech earlier and say that maybe he did do more, but at the same point, I don't know.
I'm gonna jump in.
I still have a problem with a secondary assist playing a primary role in your scoring for anybody.
I'm going to jump in here and say I think it's great that we're arguing over who should get what. Because
this is a great conversation.
Yeah, not just that, because every year, how many names come up for every award, right? With the exception of the Art Ross and the the Rocket Richard Trophy, we have at least 6 names usually. The exception this year is probably going to be the Hart, and I think that just goes to show just how much talent there is in the NHL. Where we can pick from pretty much any team, and out of 30 teams, maybe half of them, maybe more, have a legitimate chance of having someone in discussion. I think that's great. There's one thing I wanted to quickly jump in. I don't remember. I think it was Dave who said that, or LA Kings Dave here, who said that overall primary scoring by first line forwards is down.
It is, and I do another podcast as well, because, I mean, you guys know I write for Last Word on Sports, and I do a podcast with one of the guys there as well, usually on Tuesdays, and he brought it up because he'd been looking into it, and he was like, I'm going to look into this and check it out. And he looked at the last, 10 seasons and realized that scoring in general since the last lockout, well, not the last lockout, not 2 years ago, but the major lockout in 2005, scoring's not, that far down. In general, it's gone up and down a little bit, but barely changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it averages around 3.15 every year. Yeah.
So scoring overall is still pretty static across the board by team in the last 10 years. But by position, defensemen are scoring more now than ever.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit interesting to see.
I think the second thing that shows that this piece of, I guess, factoid shows that is really impressive to me is that players like Ovechkin, or I guess not players like Ovechkin still continues to produce goals at the rate that he produces goals. I mean, the reason why I brought it up is there was an article on Sportsnet similar to what you guys were talking about, and so between 2000 and 2012, the average elite player total ice time per game played was about 20.5 minutes or plus, and points per 60 are about 2.8. So it's about 80 points. This year, it's projected to only be around 70. Whereas Alex Ovechkin is posting consistently 40, 50, 60 goal seasons, where he's a machine. You know, he doesn't ever let down or let go. You can tell the time of day by him. He's so predictable. in that sense. I think that just goes to show an appreciation for players like Ovechkin, or I guess again just Ovechkin, and Sidney Crosby as well, who just continue to produce at this high level time and time again.
Well, anyway, we've discussed this for a bit now. I'm sure we've run it into the ground a little bit, but it is a good conversation to have, and I think that it does make people think about just the way that defensemen are judged nowadays versus back in the day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys back in the day as well. I mean, even Bobby Orr, who is the greatest defenseman of all time, you kind of wonder if he wasn't as good offensively, if people would still judge him the same way. So,
I think the thing with Bobby Orr is he played in an era where clutch and grab hockey was the name of the game, right? Where you could literally hold on to someone and pull him down if you wanted to, and you could get away with it, right? And Bobby Orr still did well in such a time. I think that's probably what speaks to him most as a player. Again, I never really had a chance to watch Bobby Orr being still a young, essentially a kid in the eyes of most older hockey fans. So I can't speak to that, but from hearsay, this is the feeling, or this is the understanding that I have.
I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter. This is a slight divergence, but apparently my mother was friends with Bobby Orr back in the day.
Yeah, I saw you talking about that.
And just had never saw fit to inform me. She literally, we were talking on the phone last night as I was getting ready to go to bed, and she was like, "Oh yeah, they were just in all the bars in Boston, you know. Do you know Phil Esposito?" "Yes, Mom, I know who Phil Esposito is." "Oh yeah, you always saw him at Daisy Buchanan's on Wednesday nights." What? What? So, the long and the short of it was, apparently Bobby Orr used to park his car on Newbury Street in Boston, and people would go by it and just, tap on the hood, as you walk by. Like, "Oh, yeah, Bobby Orr." And you knew what car Bobby Orr's was. She could not recall what kind of car it was. She said the reason you knew it was his is because there were 8 hockey sticks in the back seat. And apparently Bobby Orr just left 8 hockey sticks in the back seat of his car, and everyone knew it was his car, and he wasn't worried about that at all, because he was Bobby fucking Orr.
Although, I have to wonder, who doesn't leave hockey sticks in their car? Is that not normal?
But I mean, Newbury Street is, basically Main Street in Boston. And if you're Bobby Orr, obviously you made a lot of money. Boston is not a city known for its low crime rates. So, you're kind of leaving yourself exposed to having your car windows broken and everything stolen, but Bobby Orr didn't give a fuck, and no one broke into his car. It was Bobby Orr's car.
That's a great story. I like that. That's amazing.
Yeah. My mom was like, "Oh yeah, it's just parked outside the bar." Apparently they all went out on Sunday nights to some place also on Newbury Street that had a live band. She was like, "We were so hungover on Monday mornings, but they didn't really have to do anything on Monday mornings, so it's just us girls." What? So my mom used to show up for work sloshed on Monday mornings.
Oh boy. There is no story I have related to hockey that can top that, ever.
The main thing, I've been a hockey fan almost my whole life. And I'm a hockey fan through my mother, who is a Blackhawks fan. But, what? Oh my God, I guess you wouldn't tell a kid that you used to hang out at bars with Bobby Orr. But, how had that never come up since I turned, 16? I scrolled through Twitter to find the line that was my favorite line, which is, "Oh yeah, Derek Sanderson and I were friends."
Honestly, the only hockey story, a player hockey story that I have is I got yelled at by a bunch of Flyers alumni for turning the camera sideways. My dad, he plays hockey still. He's almost 60 years old, still plays hockey, but many years ago, I had to be 9 or 10 years old. The place he plays kind of made a team that he was on and was captain of, and they brought in the Flyers alumni
to play against him. So he was playing against like Bill Clement, Bill Barber, and all them. And I walked out on the ice to take the picture after it, and I went to turn it sideways, like horizontally, to. For some reason, I wanted to do that, and they all just yelled "no" at me. That is the extent of my hockey player interaction.
The other one, I told Jess this story and got yelled at, so don't yell at me. But I was at a bar probably about a month and a half ago in Washington, and it's like 1 in the morning. I'm pretty drunk. And I'm on what's called U Street, which is like a street where people go out. And I get a text from a friend. It goes, Ari, where are you? I'm on U Street. We need you to come here to a different part of town where people go out. I said, no, I'm not fucking going all the way to Adams Morgan. I'm on U Street. Like, there are 2 people here who are saying they're hockey players. We need you to come verify. No, I'm not fucking taking a cab across town to verify whether 2 assholes play at, like, Notre Dame or something. I was like, what are their names? Mike and Tom. So anyways, it was Michael Latta and Tom Wilson. I didn't go.
Nice.
I know. People in the morning are like, we took a picture of them just in case you'd recognize it. And I was like, oh, fuck.
So, one time, this was like 2007, my friend Cheryl invited me to go out. And I was like, all right, let's go. So we're going down to Newport Beach, and her friend meets us there. And her friend is like model. Like, 10 out of 10, amazing. And we're at this bar, and she keeps talking about this dude Dustin that she wants to meet up with. And I was like, how do you know him? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, he's a hockey player. And I was like, cool. He's like, I was like, does he play like locally at one of the rinks? And since I played at all the rinks locally in Orange County, because there aren't really a ton of them, she's like, no, he plays for the Ducks. I was like, oh, interesting. Ends up being Dustin Penner. So Dustin Penner shows up to the bar that we're at, and like he and I and my friend Cheryl and then her friend, who that was the only night I ever met her, and I guess Dustin Penner went home with her that night, but that was interesting. He was a total douchebag, so not at all unsurprising. So that was like the worst player experience I've had as far as anybody else. Like, he was a total douchebag the entire night. But I've had plenty of good experiences with players, like last night, but...
Well, the good news is apparently Gordie Howe was a really fun guy. Very nice.
He just seems like the type of person to be fun and nice.
Gordie Howe one time chased down a robber.
Really?
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
Hockey player by night, crime-fighting superhero by day.
Yeah, Batman by day.
Okay, so he was out with... Alright, I'm going to have to look this up really quick. But I know he was like out with his wife one night, and somebody, like another woman or something, had her purse stolen. And Gordie Howe like chased him down and got the purse back. And this was after he had left the NHL. Alright, I'm going to tell you right now, I know this story, but the details you'll have to look up because I know for a fact this was in Houston. So what happened is he had left the NHL and the WHA, the World Hockey Association, had started. And he went to play in Houston after he had retired because he wanted to play with his sons in Houston in the World Hockey Association. This was in the 70s. And he was out with his wife one night, and he saw a girl get her purse stolen, and he chased the robber down, got the purse back, brought it back to her, and she was like, how can I thank you? And Gordie Howe, being Mr. Hockey, says, come to some of our games, we're the Houston Aeros, or something along those lines. Like, he didn't ask for anything in return. He was just like, come to our games because we need all the support we can from fans. So, and evidently she did. Like, she became a season ticket holder. So, yeah, Gordie Howe. You can look this up. Honestly, like I said, I know this from memory, but all the details are a little bit spotty for me, so I just know the general story. But, yeah, he basically converted some fan into a Houston Aeros fan when he played in the WHA. So...
That's a great story. Admittedly, I meant to say Bobby Orr, but that's a great story, and I'm glad I misspoke.
That's cool.
Anyways, I took us way far away from substantive hockey, but I really had to share that story.
Yeah.
Because you're just getting ready for bed, and you're talking about the Boston Bruins maybe missing the playoffs.
It's not even 8 o'clock. Why are we talking about bed? It's 7:50 right now.
No, I meant when I was talking to my mom.
Can you say that again, please?
Oh, it was like...
No. I don't care about the rest of it. Say the Boston Bruins part again.
The Boston Bruins maybe missing the playoffs.
Music to my ears.
Music to all of our ears. Wouldn't we all love to see that?
Yes.
You know. But
if any Bruins fans are listening to this, to you guys I say suck it, and I honestly don't. I have only 2 words: go Sens.
Ooh. Oh, hey,
I was waiting for the rest of the words.
but since you're here right now,
Yes.
we were talking about the Eastern Conference playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
How, on a scale of like 1 to 100, how confident are you that the Senators can make the playoffs since you're here right now?
Oh, you're asking me to be confident about the Sens. Things I'm more.
I know. Okay, you have admittedly said you are an overconfident person, and that you have a lot of faith in yourself. But how much faith do you have in your team?
So I'm going to list the things I have more confidence in than the Sens at any given point, and that would be your car starting on the day of a very important exam, your electricity not going out when you need it to stay on, things like this. So basically, what I'm saying is I'm along for the ride. I'm happy at what the Sens are doing. I don't have any faith whatsoever in anything. Because my mind, like, to start the season, I thought we were going to be better. Halfway through the season, I thought we were going to be worse. Here we are right now. I don't know what to believe anymore. It's honestly the roller coaster that the Sens team is would make it's just mind-boggling at how crazy it is. So yeah, long story short, none.
That's fine. I don't think many people have faith in your team anyway, so it's
yeah. I'm like, here's the thing. Andrew Hammond is a great story. He makes a great story.
He's a great story.
But if you look at his underlying stats in the AHL, and yes, there can be an argument made for different styles of play. One is messier, one is not. But throughout his career, from basically the time he started to the point in the AHL, up until basically the time he started in the NHL, his stats have all been mediocre to bad. And this, 13-game stretch he's been on, or 14, or whatever it is now, has been unbelievable. But that's literally what it is. Unbelievable. It's gonna happen at some point that he's gonna regress. The Boston Bruins game may be a taste of what's to come. I don't know. At the same time, though, the Sens as a team are playing a bit of better defense. So again, at this point, just throw all your cards away. Who knows what's going to happen? And that's the motto of the East this year. Throw all the cards away. Let them see what falls. Or let's see what falls.
All right, then. Dave Ball.
Yo.
You've been pretty quiet for a while. What else you got for us?
Honestly, nothing. We kind of got all the topics that I kind of wrote down. I didn't write down that many this morning, so earlier.
All right, R.A. Raid.
That's me.
What else you got for us?
I've talked a lot this podcast.
I know you did, and that's fine. You have anything else you wanted to hit before we take off? Because it's been almost 3 hours.
I know we talked about who we thought was going to make the playoffs in the East. Did we talk about who we think is going to make the playoffs in the West?
I don't think we covered the West.
We did not. So...
I was just thinking about that because I just looked at the standings. There are no games being played tonight that would affect the Western Conference playoff standings. Anaheim is playing whatever. Anaheim is making the playoffs. But the way it stands right now, The bottom couple of teams are Vancouver, which has 84 points, Calgary, which is 83, and those are both Pacific teams, obviously. Minnesota with 85, Winnipeg with 84, and Los Angeles with 82.
Now, Los Angeles has the
One game in
tiebreaker
hand.
with Winnipeg, and we have a game in hand.
No, Los Angeles does not have the tiebreaker with Winnipeg.
Yes, we do. We
Yeah.
have...
They have the row wins.
Yeah.
But if Los Angeles wins its next game, you'll both have 84 points. But Winnipeg will have... Oh, it's regulation and overtime wins?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We
Well,
have
no,
the
but just
tiebreaker
straight
with
wins.
Winnipeg.
Just straight wins. Winnipeg has 36. Los Angeles would have
I
35.
understand this, but that's
They
not how
don't
the
go by
NHL does it anymore.
Yeah, it's no
For the row score.
yeah, it's there's no longer regulation and overtime, it's all one. It's regulation overtime. Shootout doesn't count.
Okay, so how many shootout wins does Winnipeg have?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Winnipeg's row is 29, while the Kings have 32.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
the Kings
So,
will be ahead of them.
The Kings' shootout record is god-awful. It might be the worst in the league. I'm pretty sure it is the worst in the league. No, I'm not even joking. Like, I
You guys
think...
are 2 for 7, and we are 3 for 9. So
Okay, there you go.
slightly worse.
Yeah. LA has a tier. The last time we went to a shootout, we scored 3 shootout goals. That was more than we had scored total the entire season. We had 2 total shootout goals before that game. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, LA has a tiebreaker on Winnipeg. Also, if we win that game, we have the game in hand on Calgary. So we have 70 games to their 71. So we could pass them up in points, and we could also pass up Winnipeg. So
But do you think you will?
yes,
Do you think you're making the playoffs?
yes.
You can never count out the Kings. You can never.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel at this point. And this is coming from somebody that, as you know, has been a fan for so long that I remember when we were the worst team ever. Literally.
Right now, as the standard representative of the Washington Capitals, we were the worst team ever.
No.
You.
The Washington Capitals have the worst season ever, but the Kings legitimately had the worst winning percentage of any team ever at one point. So the Kings also have only won 1 division title ever, and before 2012 had only reached the finals once, and blah blah blah. So yeah, the Kings were pretty much the worst team since the expansion in '67. Anyway, until 2012, obviously. But yeah, no, I still have faith in the Kings. I think we'll win the next game against the Canucks, and then we have the Devils, who I think we can beat. Rangers is going to be tough. I think we can. I think that going down the list of teams that we have left, the only team that really scares me, well, I would say 3 teams scare me that are left. We have 12 teams left, and even though we play on the road a lot, we play Blackhawks on the road, Islanders and Rangers on the road, and the Wild. So I guess 4. Although I think we can beat the Islanders. So
The Islanders have been slumping, but obviously they're very good, and they are going to get Nick Leddy back shortly. Minnesota's obviously been very good, although they're dependent on their goaltending, which has admittedly been above average. So, if the Kings did make the playoffs, where do you want to fall? Assuming that Anaheim stays where it is as first in the West, and let's assume that St. Louis stays as first in the Central. Who do you want to play?
you know, I was talking. Last night I went to the Kings versus Ducks poker tournament, which they do once a year. And there's a lot of ex-players and media and stuff there. So all the Kings crew, as far as announcers were there, Ducks and all that, and the Kings broadcast team. So and Luke Robitaille. So I was talking to Luke Robitaille. I was talking to Sean O'Donnell, who used to play for the Kings, and he's now part of their broadcast crew. And we were breaking this down a little bit for a little while. And they both feel that the Kings will make it in and will probably end up playing the Canucks. Even though the Flames seem to be not letting off, even though Giordano's hurt. I still find it hard to believe that they'll finish above both teams or in the top 2 or 3 spots. Sean O'Donnell believes that the Flames will still make the wild card and end up playing the Ducks, and that Winnipeg will be out. I find that hard to believe, but it's cool.
If I'm the Kings, I don't actually care. Looking at the standings as they are now,
no, nobody cares if you're
who I play, right?
No Kings fan cares at all. Based on the last 3 seasons,
yeah,
all you care about is making the playoffs. And
exactly.
At this point, I still think we can make the playoffs. And like I said, I'm worried about those 4 games I mentioned. And you should worry about every game. That's true. But I think that we can beat everybody else that's on the schedule.
No, I'm saying once you make it, not once. If you make it into the playoffs, which most Kings fans and most analysts seem to think will be the case, I don't think you care as a fan who you play against, because
I think you do. I mean, I understand that the Kings have had some very good seasons in the past 3 years. But look, I'm a Blackhawks fan. We've had some really good seasons too, and I absolutely fucking care.
But you're in a tougher division.
But you're telling me you wouldn't rather play the Winnipeg Jets than the Anaheim Ducks? You're telling me you wouldn't rather play the Vancouver Canucks than the Anaheim Ducks?
Of course you would.
I'm not a little bit nervous about playing Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf in a 7-game series?
I'm not sure.
They could do 7 games left.
I'm not sure because look at the play. Okay, so you said Canucks, yeah, Calgary or Winnipeg. I can understand. If you look at the other ones though, Minnesota, they have people who can hurt you. You've got Canucks.
Minnesota's not any good. LA wouldn't have any trouble with Minnesota.
Okay, Lonzo, you got to realize the Ducks are going to win the division.
Yes.
So we are only going to play Calgary.
But I'm saying hypothetically, let's say you can be placed anywhere in the playoffs match with anybody.
Well, no, if you take
No, but we don't have hypotheticals at this point. Because we will play Vancouver, Calgary, or Anaheim, and whoever wins the Central. Like there's nobody else.
Which is looking
at this point, I would love to play St. Louis, obviously. And then I would love to play Vancouver or Calgary. But we're not going to play Minnesota or Winnipeg. We might play Chicago in the first round, which I think nobody wants in the NHL, personally.
No.
We might play Anaheim in the first round, which I also think nobody wants. So
I'd love that, actually.
If I'm the NHL,
fan, I'm sure you would. But
if I'm the NHL, I want Anaheim, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Nashville or St. Louis to make it through.
Yes, to the second round is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Is like I don't think anybody wants us to play anybody other than Vancouver or Calgary in the first round.
I think that everyone agrees with that. That's from a standpoint of selling the game. That's what needs to happen.
So who do you guys leave out right now? Like, do you guys believe Los Angeles will make it or not? I mean, I'm a Los Angeles fan. I'm a homer. Of course, I believe we can still make it. So I want to know more from you guys. If you guys believe we can make it, okay. Alex Martinez is clear to play as of today. Tanner Pearson is back practicing on ice skating after his broken ankle today. So he'll be back by playoffs, maybe even sooner. He's already been out of a walking boot for a while. He's already been skating, but this is the first time he's practiced with the team.
Yeah.
So
I think if I look at your
health right now, obviously we're not getting Voynov back. Mike Richards or Stoll is still out, but we might get Mike Richards back. So do you guys believe that we can?
It's hard to count the Kings out.
Obviously.
And I do think
we're the biggest. Have you seen a team that's a bigger enigma in the NHL in the last 10 years or so?
Yeah, the Sharks.
The Sharks.
The Sharks.
The San Jose Sharks.
Yeah. Although I think the Sharks struggle from a lack of identity consistently, right? From year to year, they change identity, and it's just hurting them again and again.
I think there are a lot of bigger things hurting the Sharks than identity.
No, because here's the thing. When I use the term identity, I mean what the team plays as, not necessarily who they identify as or whatever.
What does the team play as even mean?
Because the way the coaching style changes. If you look at
the coaching style has been Todd McClelland all along.
Yeah, but it seems that he changes from regular season to playoffs. the way they
No.
play.
I think you're being fooled by a consistent streak of bad luck in the playoffs.
That's quite possible too. I will admit that is entirely possible, and I will agree with that. However, there is a certain point where bad luck just turns into. Then again, the playoffs is not exactly the greatest place for a sample size, so that is a fair criticism to make. Oh God, I lost my train of thought. That's terrible.
Okay, do you believe the Kings are gonna make the playoffs or not?
Okay, here's the thing. If the Kings miss the playoffs, they are the best team in a long time to miss the playoffs. That said, you're cutting it really fucking close.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I fully believe the Kings might miss.
But at the same token,
Winnipeg, that's out for me.
But at the same token, you can actually say that you could also believe the Kings might make it.
Oh yeah, I give it about a 50-50 at this point.
I would do the same.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they'll be the first team since Carolina that won the Stanley Cup and misses the playoffs the next year.
Yeah, that's a good stat.
Yeah.
I like that stat a lot.
It was almost you guys in 2011.
I'm sure you do.
Well, we lost in the first round, but we took them to 7 games. We should have won that series. Fucking Vancouver.
I'm saying you guys barely got into the playoffs, so it was almost you that won that stat.
Yeah, we were the 8th seed that year. Although we were higher than the 8th seed for most of the season. So it's not like the Kings, who have been out of the playoffs most of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys did also trade half your team away because of cap.
Yeah, we did.
Which was your big problem was.
We did lose almost half our team. God damn it, Dale Talent.
If Los Angeles makes it in, who do you think drops out? Winnipeg or
Winnipeg
Calgary?
for me.
Calgary.
Oh, Calgary does have less amount of points, so.
I think it's more likely the Los Angeles takes the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division, and Calgary misses out, then Winnipeg loses its wild card. Mm-hmm. Which is great, because I think that Winnipeg making the playoffs is great for the NHL.
Yeah.
I do too. But I don't think that Calgary would be that much less of a hit to the NHL.
Yeah.
It would almost be better for Calgary as a team to not make the playoffs. They might as well prepare for next year when they're also not making the playoffs.
Yeah, I think if Calgary makes the playoffs, I think if Calgary makes the playoffs, you're going to run the same problem the Sens did when they made the playoffs in 2013, I believe.
They won a round. The Sens won a round. The Flames aren't gonna.
Honestly, that was against the Montreal Canadiens, who were they were slumping towards the end of the year. Their goalies were injured, and Ottawa seems to play better against Montreal consistently. So because then Ottawa went on to Pittsburgh and were absolutely destroyed. So I think that this Calgary making it in would be bad for Calgary because they'll fall prey to this false sense of optimism about where they actually are in terms of their development.
Yep. Obviously, I know the NHL and Dave would love to see the Kings make it. But I almost feel like the Kings, after squeaking into the playoffs so much, and about the luck they had last year in the playoffs, they almost don't deserve to make the playoffs. Get out of here.
I love the stats that we've got 47 points is the lowest by a team, and then the highest is 97. That is mind-boggling. That's a full 50 points.
That's a lot of games.
25 wins. Different.
Hey, Dave Ball.
Yes.
Can you send Beardbag an invite?
Sure.
Fuck that guy.
So, what we basically heard earlier was Ari practicing her yelling on me. It was more of a warm-up.
I didn't even yell at you. That was totally polite for me.
I know. I'm just joking. I honestly, I like the fact that we can discuss like these things, actually discuss them instead of sort of sitting there nodding quietly and then seething inside.
Yeah, if you want me to yell at you, I can.
No, that's quite all right. I'm good. I accept polite discussion much more favorably.
Canadians.
Hey, Dave. You know.
All right, we got Dave in here from Minnesota. Dave, tell us about your night.
Well, I was at the Frozen Four, and it was awesome. I didn't stay for the BC Hartford game just because I kind of lost interest, but I did get to see Alex Carpenter play a little, which is pretty cool. But as far as the goal for women goes, I mean, beating a rival 3-1 is always sweet. Yep,
Good times.
that's about it.
Hey, Dave.
Go. Sorry, Ari, go.
New Dave. Do you think
Yes.
the Kings are going to make the playoffs?
I'm looking at their. Well, let me look at their schedule real quick.
We have 4 teams that are. We're 5 teams that are in playoff position out of 12 right now.
Yeah, I think they will. They have a pretty rough stretch starting on Tuesday.
I knew I liked you for a reason.
Who do they beat out for the playoffs then?
I'm going to say Calgary.
Okay, so everyone's kind of in agreement on Calgary, it seems.
No, someone said Winnipeg.
It was
Yeah, I
Dave.
changed my mind. I changed my mind to Calgary now.
How do you think? Okay, but quickly, how do you guys feel about teams their road versus home games and how they perform there?
It's real.
Just because I'm glancing at the home and away stats for LA, and they're 22-8-7 at home, which is really good, and they're 12-14-7 on away.
We understand we have one of the worst records on the road in the league.
Yeah, and you guys.
They were like that last year too.
Hang on, I'm just
But
trying to
I will say that since the All-Star break, our road record has been drastically different than it was before. Because before the All-Star break, I think we'd only won 2 games on the road.
Mhm.
That's amazing.
That is weird. That is weird, man.
Our road record is terrible.
And you guys have like what 5 home games left? So. No. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's
They
really
have
wrong.
4.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
The Flyers' road record sums up like this: Steve Mason has more shutouts than he has wins on the road.
I love that stat. I love that stat because it's such a it's a symptom of the shootout.
It's just we haven't even won 10 games on the road. Haven't even hit double digit of wins, and we have 20 losses on the road.
Holy.
Compared to our home record, which is 29-6.
It's
Which-
real. I don't know how to explain it, but some teams really do seem to get that psychological advantage. I understand it in baseball far better than I understand it in hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to see how the Sens hold up on that front.
The Senators are 17-13-6 away, while 18-11-5 at home, so about the same.
Yeah.
So.
Because last year I remember they were awful at home, whereas they were really good on the road.
I know the Flyer symptom is the PK on the road.
Yeah.
It is, I think, killing at a 60% on the road.
But it's like, why?
I don't know. That's the problem.
That was so sad. Oh no.
Dave, can you solve all the Flyers' problems real quick?
Fire Berube, that's kind of how it is right now. We're just throwing shit at the wall.
I think the best chance you can go with is PDO because it really means nothing by itself.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, but PDO is complete bullshit in the regular season. Like,
No, it's not.
no, it is, because look at the Kings. I defy you to find a team with a worse PDO in the last 3 seasons than the Kings, but we have 2
Toronto.
Stanley Cups.
Do you know why your team has a bad PDO? It's because Jonathan Quick isn't that good.
Damn!
He's not elite, as they say.
Cold!
Okay. PDO absolutely works in the regular season.
How does that help my PDO, though? Because PDO is save percentage and shooting percentage, and Jonathan Quick doesn't have a good save percentage. So that would not help my PDO that
Okay,
much.
so here's how PDO
Our
works.
shooting percentage is god-awful.
So yeah, that's why. PDO is shooting percentage plus save percentage, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
It averages out
The
to
only
1.
team even close to us, and if I believe in the last 3 seasons, is Buffalo.
And their stats are not, the PDO is not below average. Their PDO is exactly right for them.
Yeah, because their
Because
save
Buffalo's
percentage and shooting percentage below. Our shooting percentage sucks balls, and our save percentage sucks balls. So
Why are you sucking my?
somehow, we still won 2 Stanley Cups.
Okay, PDO doesn't measure your likelihood of winning a Stanley Cup,
No.
though. I don't understand your argument, Dave.
No. What PDO
Because
does...
you were talking about PDO as if it mattered.
No.
It doesn't
What
fucking
PDO
matter.
does... Here's why the Kings won, even though their PDO... And that's why I said PDO is garbage by itself. Is because...
Oh my
possession,
god.
Okay, maybe I misheard you, Ari. Explain what you meant.
First of all, I didn't bring up PDO.
No, that was
brought
a
up PDO.
joke. That was a bad joke on my part.
Also, what PDO measures is how lucky you've been.
Yeah.
So where PDO matters is when you look at a team like last year's Colorado Avalanche and say, wow, it seems like they're not that good of a team. Why are they winning the Central Division? And you see, even over the course of a season, they had a PDO of like 109 or something insane. You're like, wow, maybe that's a team that's gotten lucky this season. So PDO does matter over a course of the season. It also matters in shorter increments. You can be very lucky over the course of a playoffs, for example. You can be very lucky, for example, Justin Williams had an insanely high PDO last year during the playoffs.
Yes.
He was getting great on-ice save percentage.
When you watch a 7-game series, PDO does matter.
It also matters over the course of the season. Teams sustain being lucky over the course of the season.
Yeah.
In the long run, those teams will regress, but the fact of the matter is that 82 games isn't necessarily the long run. In the famous words of The Economist, the long run is when we're all dead. But to bring it back from economics, sometimes you have to wait for the next season to regress. And Calgary is an example of a team where PDO matters. Calgary's had a very high PDO all year. We know they're not as good as they've looked, especially with Giordano out. They shouldn't be winning some of the games they're winning. And next year, they're not going to be good. Because their PDO is going to come back down to earth. And so that's what PDO is. I don't understand your argument about the Kings PDO, and I'm not sure how it got brought up in the first place.
Okay.
But there was your PDO primer for everyone listening. PDO was my favorite stat. You can also, the other thing about PDO is the way we use it right now is a very rough approximation. We use a general estimate of about 100. Most teams are going to be about 100. But some teams are going to be higher than 100 because some teams have more skill than others. You know, a team like the New York Rangers, going to have a high save percentage, going to have a high shooting percentage, because Henrik Lundqvist is good and their team has good offensive players. So to best estimate how much a team is above or below their PDO, you actually have to calculate a team PDO over a course of about 7 seasons or so, and see how much they're above or below that. You can also calculate a more advanced expected PDO with what you expect people's save percentage and shooting percentage to be based on general NHL trends for forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders. But we don't tend to use that because it takes a lot of work. So PDO is a rough estimate, but the idea that it's getting at is still useful.
I have actually a quick question for you, Ari. What is the base timeline that should be used, or not should be used, but should be desired in this case when looking at stats over time?
That's a really good question. It really depends. For goaltenders, they tend to say about 100 NHL games. I'd say that 100 NHL games is usually a pretty good proxy. But the fact of the matter is that it really varies. Sometimes you're not going to know until you get 200 games. Sometimes you're not going to know until you've only seen 50 games, and you can be pretty sure. It depends on the player. It depends on the team. And also, because when you use stats the best, you're using them in conjunction with a lot of other things, with what you see on the ice, with what you understand in terms of tactics, with other stats. So in abstract, you might need a lot of time to know whether you really believe a team can sustain that PDO or a player can sustain that shooting percentage. In the particular, you could look at, let's say, Tarasenko a couple years ago had a high PDO and say, yeah, he's a young player. We haven't seen that much of him. He's shooting, 15%. That's high. But looking at Tarasenko play, we know he's a good player. He can probably sustain that. Whereas if you look at Alex Steen shooting 20% 2 years ago, or last year, last year shooting 20%. We knew Alex Seen a lot of games under his belt and wasn't going to stay in 20%. So it depends on the player, it depends on the situation.
Okay.
Like, you can look at Phil Forsberg is shooting not as high anymore. It's gone down a lot recently. But we can be pretty sure Forsberg isn't going to shoot a high percentage because Phil Forsberg is a skilled player. I'm comfortable saying that he's going to score a bunch of goals in the future. Worst trade of all time.
I like that.
Seriously, such a bad trade.
Speaking of PDO,
Mhm.
can you guess off the top of your head? Do you think you could guess who has the highest PDO from 2007 to 2014?
Probably Anaheim.
You're close. They're top 3.
I'm gonna go Montreal.
I have no idea.
It's
7. Stop.
I'm using Puckalytics as my as my source here, but don't cheat.
So it has to be a team that was.
Situations 5-on-5 even strength.
It has to be a team that was good consistently and had good goaltending consistently, and maybe got a little bit lucky.
Well, I mean, like, Colorado had a ridiculous PDO last season, but if you're going, how many seasons you said?
From 2007 to 2014.
That's 7 years.
Yeah,
Maybe Boston.
Yep. That is correct.
I mean, between Tuukka Rask and Tim Thomas,
Yeah, that's
you had
true.
ridiculous save percentage. I don't know about their shooting percentage, so.
So who are the top 3?
So it goes Boston, Vancouver, and then Anaheim.
Vancouver, really?
Actually,
Yeah,
I'm not surprised by that.
I would
I'm not
never.
surprised.
I would not have guessed Vancouver.
I mean, they've had amazing goaltending though. You have to
Yeah, and I mean, your top line scores had consistently 2 great scoring people, so.
But they take a lot of shots. It's not like they're shooting 18%.
I don't know.
I don't know what Vancouver's course is.
Well,
By the way,
I mean, their shooting percentage over the 7 years that I'm looking at, they're 8.24%. That's 5th in the league.
That's actually really high.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's the highest, obviously.
That's ridiculous.
I looked up Phil.
Who's the worst, Dave? Who's the worst?
For PDO?
No, for shooting percentage.
Oh, let me. New
Well,
Jersey.
for both.
Oh, okay. Well, worst for shooting percentage is New Jersey at 7.19%.
Worst for PDO has to be Edmonton. It just has to be.
No, it's not actually.
No?
No.
Because Edmonton has actually a pretty decent shooting percentage. That's
Where
why.
is-
Yeah, but their goaltending has been abysmal for
Yeah.
7 years.
But I think it makes up.
Edmonton is actually 20th for PDO.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah.
way better than I would
So
have
yeah, their shooting percentage is making up for their lack of goaltending.
Islanders are the worst for PDO.
That makes sense.
98.65.
Okay.
Where are the Kings?
The Kings are 27th. 99.47.
What about the Flyers?
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Bottom 3 right there. Or
Flyers
bottom
are
4.
Flyers are actually top 10.
Yeah, we do shoot a lot, I guess.
There's some teams in the top 10 that I wouldn't expect. Well, Nashville's like Nashville, Dallas, Arizona's up there.
Arizona, really?
Yeah, they're 7th.
With their defensive system?
Apparently.
I think here's the. I'm trying to remember. Part of the problem is a lot of these teams are Western teams, which I haven't had a chance to watch over 7 seasons. So, or whatever it is, 6 seasons.
I'm looking at Corsi right now, and Detroit's actually the best.
Not surprising. Not even close to surprising.
Chicago's 2nd. Minnesota and Edmonton are the bottom 2.
I hate being second to Detroit.
I personally love it. I love that.
What if you refine it to 2010 to 2015?
Well, let me.
Because let's get some of those fucking Nick Lidstrom years out of there. That's cheating. We don't count those years.
Confirmed Ari does not like Lidstrom.
Nope.
What did Lidstrom retire?
2012? 2011?
2011?
He won the Norris in 2011, right?
Alright, so we'll do 2012 to 2015 to this year.
His last notice is bullshit.
I know, it
Yeah.
should have been Shea
That
Weber.
was That was reputation more.
Yes.
Ari, I hate to tell you this, but you're still second.
Fuck that noise. Who are we second to? Is it still Detroit?
No.
Is it the Kings?
Yeah.
Oh, that's even worse.
Wait,
Get back to 2007.
For 2012 to 2015, the Kings are the best Corsi 4 percentage team at 56.1%.
Yeah, I knew that.
That's ridiculously impressive, actually.
And then it's Chicago, Boston, Detroit, St. Louis. New Jersey's actually up there. Wow.
Huh.
Yeah, because until this year, New Jersey was a good team.
That's true.
I don't know. They had a good year in the 2011, 2012, but I mean before that they were 5 points for making the playoffs. They had a really terrible beginning of the season when John McClain was coaching them. Anyway.
Yeah.
Seriously, losing to the Kings, the worst. I'd rather lose to Lidstrom.
I don't know what that feels like, losing to the Kings. No, nothing.
Good Lord, Ari. Even in the 2-year stretch, Chicago's still second to the Kings.
Shut up! Stop talking.
I'm sorry, but
Okay, in between 2010 and 2012, I'm sure we were better than the Kings.
well, let me look.
Still lose
Or
to
like
Detroit.
go like 2009, 2011, actually.
That is some terrible cherry picking of data.
Okay, 2010 to 2012, you're still worse than the Kings at fourth.
I hate you. Stop looking things up.
What was the other one?
2009
2009 to
2011.
2011.
Even with your cherry picking, you're still not first.
I know.
Okay,
I'm literally just excluding years.
All right, fine. Yeah, all right, they're first that year, 2009 to 2011.
Suck it,
You're
Dave.
just lying, aren't you, right now? You're
No,
lying right now.
I'm dead serious. This is 5-on-5. I can link it if you want me to on Twitter. Well, I guess I can't. But
That's
yeah,
fine.
it's
It's
Chicago. Chicago's first, Detroit second, Pittsburgh is third for Corsi 4.
Ah, good times.
Basically, let's recap. Let's put an addendum to that. Basically, when you're cherry picking data, you can make anything seem like you want it to. In fact, let's take a single game from the year 2007. Ideally, when the Sens went up 7-2 on the Maple Leafs. Let's pick that game. Where were the Sens in Corsi 4 on that night?
Interesting enough, Chicago was 22nd with PDO that year. Those 2 years.
Yeah, I believe that, especially the 2010, 2011 year. We were still a really good team that year, and we definitely underperformed. Part of it was cup hangover. Part of it was that year was really confusing because we kept trading people.
Good shooting percentage though, at 8%, pretty much.
Yeah.
Remember
when we had Brian Campbell on our team?
I think a good shooting percentage for a team sits somewhere
Brian
around
Campbell
what,
wasn't
6.5 to 8.
What's the NHL average shooting percentage these days?
Probably
That's a
around 9.
Good question.
No, not a team average.
A team average? I'm seeing a lot of 7s. 7 and 8% seems pretty. Because you have Tampa Bay is the highest right now at 9%, and they're the only team at 9%.
Yeah.
And then you have.
I'm pretty sure last year the average was like 9%.
Well, let me look. Are we talking 5-on-5?
I was just talking overall.
Because the reason why I say that having a 9% seems a bit tight is because a team average is literally the average of every shooter. So you can't possibly have, like, you're going to have some 14%, which are your, what is it? I think Ovechkin shoots at 14.
Stamkos shoots at almost 20.
And yeah, well, Stamkos, again, these are outliers, right? And then you've got people on the underside who shoot like 2%.
Well, yeah, like Doughty and the Kings. Like Doughty only has like 5 goals this season, but he shoots the puck a lot just to like generate rebounds.
Exactly. So you're gonna have an average that's gonna come somewhere between those two, and at the roughest, you're talking like, let's just say really, really roughly, which means basically nothing essentially. But you're sitting somewhere around what, 8? Which is what seems to be the case anyway.
in all situations this year, Tampa and Calgary are at 10% for shooting percentage.
I told you Calgary was overperforming.
Yeah, but you just have to watch a game to see that.
It's a pretty close margin too, 10.8 to 10.6. I'm not being super specific here, but
Mike Camilleri is shooting almost 19% this season. That's madness.
Mike Camilleri is basically Steven Stamkos. Confirmed.
Confirmed.
What is it, E5 or something? I think that's how it goes.
Yeah, by Eklund standards.
Although Alex Tenge is shooting 21%. That seems sustainable.
Yeah? If you, stop playing right now.
Alex Tenge retires after the season. Gives up. He's also only a +2. Shooting 21% and a +2. Welcome to Colorado.
Yeah.
Off the top of your guys' heads, do you guys know who has the most shots in NHL history?
In NHL history?
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't know that off the top of your head, wouldn't you?
Okay, you have to give me a hint here, because I'm not as good with.
No hints.
Okay, is it? Oh, that's true.
Because we can guess this. Because it has to be a really great player, right?
Not necessarily.
For shots, all-time shots, it is a Hall of Famer.
Ooh. Matt Cook.
I'm gonna go find Matt Cook's skate. I'm gonna go find Matt Cook's skate. Ideally, the one he cut Carlson with. And
you know what?
I will give you a hint. This player,
Dave, am I right?
Who'd you say?
Raymond Bourque.
Yes.
Nice. Nailed it.
Oh, Raymond Bourque was my next guess after Cook.
He took so many shots.
Raymond
played
Bourque.
so long.
How many did you take?
No, Raymond Bourque is like astronaut. Like, you know how Wayne Gretzky has so many more points than anybody else? Raymond Bourque is like that with shots. Raymond Bourque is first with 6,206 in shots, 6,206. Second is Marcel Dion with 5,366. He has 800 plus more than the next guy.
That's close. Yeah, that's impressive.
Also, Ray Bourque is the only defenseman to ever be a first-team All-Star his rookie season and his final season in the NHL as a defenseman. In 1980, he was Rookie of the Year, which is the season that Gretzky came into the league, and Bourque won Rookie of the Year that year because Gretzky wasn't eligible.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was first-team All-Star when he was with Quebec in 2001, when he ended up retiring after he won the Cup. He's the only defenseman to ever be first-team All-Star, both his rookie and final season in the NHL. Boom, knowledge.
Also, I want to read some of these tweets about who the most important players are other than a goalie, because that's actually pretty funny.
Raymond Bourque was making Corsi a thing before it was a thing.
That made sense.
Shots.
Shot.
But what about block shots? That's what I want to know.
Nicholas Darlington.
Does he go for that?
Nicholas Darlington is the standing NHL leader in block shots. Even if it's not true, it's still it's truthiness.
Okay, I will give you that Nicholas Hjalmarsson might be good at that, but let's not discredit Chris Russell of Calgary, who set an NHL record with 15 block shots in one game last week.
That's hilarious. At some point, stop, right?
I mean, at some point, you have to have bruises on every part of your leg. Like,
your bruises will have bruises.
Guys, I'm gonna pull my sport is better than your sport out here and say that polo does not have any shot blocking, so hockey's better than polo. Never mind. No.
Hamza, what's your ethnicity?
I am Egyptian and Indian. Why?
Oh no, I thought you were Indian, and I've been watching the World Cup of Cricket because my company's Indian. And I gotta say, cricket's pretty good.
You picked the wrong person to talk about cricket, mostly because my interest.
Well, you're Canadian as well, and Canada plays cricket because they're part of the British, Commonwealth.
Yeah, no, No?
Anyway, India's pretty good at cricket, bro.
Who?
India.
Oh, okay. So top 3 in the world, or top 4 in the world: India, Pakistan, Australia, and England.
South Africa right now.
Oh, and Africa. How could I forget South Africa? Like, my mom's actually from South Africa, and I forgot them.
Well, they're quarterfinals right now. Anyway,
So I just looked up.
Australia beat Pakistan yesterday, so.
So I had seen a stat. Speaking of shot blocking, sorry, I'm taking this back to hockey. My sport is better than your sport. I had just seen a quote the other day, and I looked it up. It was from at NHL History Girl, who's a great follow if any of you aren't following her. And she tweeted a great line from J.S. Jaguar, who said, she said, J.S. Jaguar appreciated shot blockers, but would tell inexperienced teammates, I'd rather have a goal against than have you dead. And that seems like what someone should tell Chris Russell. I would rather have a goal against than have you block 15 shots.
Interesting.
I really want to say here something about truculence and grit and how J.S. Jaguar doesn't appreciate it, because, I mean, it's right there. It's right there.
J.S. Jaguar is super truculent.
No, I know, but I'm saying, like, the joke is right there.
I know, but it's so close and yet so far for you. I can feel it.
Exactly. It's so frustrating.
Whenever I think of J.S. Jaguar, I always think of the sad panda picture.
Let's not. Don't do that to me. Come on.
Listen, let's be honest. That was a great series. That was a great run to the Stanley Cup Finals. And unfortunately, well, I don't really care because I'm a Kings fan. But
I care because I cared because I like the Devils. That was a great year.
Let's be honest, though. That year was a great year for hockey fans. You had a Cinderella team in the Ducks make it to Game 7 of the Finals. You had a perennial contender in the Devils win it, but still. It was a great story. Jaguar won. Conn Smythe, he's the last guy to win it as a loser. And it was a great hockey moment. Like, I know that we joke about it, but it was a great hockey moment.
I want to talk about this.
Do you know why I'm upset?
Oh, by the way, Beardbag, we were talking about Scott Stevens earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hit
I'm just
people
throwing that out there.
pretty hard.
Ari told me she basically hated me because I like Scott Stevens, so.
Yeah, I stand by that.
Ari, it's okay. You can hate me all you want because I don't hate you. And I'm not.
That is a classic LA Dave thing to say to me. That is right out of LA Dave's wheelhouse.
Well, I'm totally not saying this because of Flint or anything.
I know.
What did I do? Here, hold on.
No, it's
You
just
always-
what.
Whenever I'm like, I hate your team or I hate you, you're like, I don't hate anyone. And it makes me feel bad. And Dave just did the same thing.
Oh, no. Don't get me
Oh,
wrong.
you know what? I honestly don't hate anyone. Like, so it's cool.
You know what's really frustrating about hearing this conversation is the Sens. If we're like from a hockey standpoint, the Sens have nobody to hate, and that's what happens when you're a pathetic loser team. You can't hate anybody because your team sucks so bad. You
Hating
hate
is
yourself.
fun. Trust me on this. Hating is fun.
I know we hated the Leafs for so long, but I can't even do that now.
You
They
can still.
suck.
What are you talking about? You can still hate those Toronto boys.
But they suck so bad. I can't hate their hockey team. They're pathetic. I mean, my team's pathetic, and I can't hate the Leafs. They're pathetic.
Dude, if North Dakota was terrible, you can bet your ass I'd hate on them all the time.
But it's an empty hate because it doesn't
My
mean
team-
anything.
Oh no, it means
And
something.
I still hate Pittsburgh. Like,
Yeah, but Pittsburgh's good.
and
You can hate a good team.
There were some years where they were awful.
Yeah.
Listen, I love hockey. I've told people this for forever, but I'm a hockey fan first and a Kings fan second. I love the sport of hockey. I love players on multiple teams. Like I said, I mean, I was talking up Joe Thornton earlier. I loved Paul Correa when he was here in Anaheim. I respect Ryan Getzlaf, even though I don't love him necessarily because I still think he's kind of whiny at times. But for me, it's like, even though I am a Kings fan, I just love hockey. Like, for me, it's hard for me to hate people. I hate douchebags. I am not a fan of, like, Slava Voinov or Varlamov are people that do shitty things, but that has nothing to do with me hating people other than them doing shitty things. So, for me, it's hard for me to hate hockey, and so it's hard for me to hate teams. I can hate fan bases that are ignorant.
Fuck the Senators.
But do you really mean it? Do you really mean it?
In fact, I think that my hate for the Senators is so pure because I don't have an on-ice reason to hate you. I hate you just pure, straight out of hate.
Okay, and I think for just this particular reason, you are now my favorite Chicago fan.
That's so annoying. That's the most annoying thing you could have said.
I revel in your hatred. It feels so good.
You know, like, I hate the Blues because I hate losing to the Blues. And I hate the Kings because I hate losing to the Kings. And I fucking hate losing to the Avalanche. I don't remember the last time we even played the Senators. But I just hate you.
You played the Sens the same game that Marian Hossa got his 1,000th point.
Oh, I do remember that. That was great. That was great. We gave him so much shit.
You know why?
I'm going to ask you guys a genuine question because he's obviously a great player, and I don't want Ari's opinion on this yet.
Thanks.
No, I'm asking you this because
if you don't want Ari's opinion on this, you can't take mine
but
either.
fans of a player are biased. So I want to ask you, the rest of you, do you think Marian Hossa is going to be a Hall of Famer? Not Ari, because obviously she has a slight bias so far.
Shoot. Okay, here's my take on it, and this is I'm a homer for Hossa. Hossa is literally my favorite player of all time, even ahead of Alfredsson. When I first started watching hockey, I watched the Sens for Hossa. My number that I wear on all my jerseys, number 18. Why? Marian Hossa wore that when he was in the Sens. Okay, so that's what my bias.
So you might be a homer too.
I think that if you allow a person like Daniel Alfredsson into the Hall of Fame, which I think you should, I think there should be a serious consideration for allowing Hossa as well. I seriously do.
Who else's opinion on this were we getting?
Well, I'm going to say no because fuck the Blackhawks.
No, but I'm asking a serious question though. Like, do you think Hossa is a Hall of Famer if this season ends? Is he a Hall of Famer? He has 1,000 points.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, he is.
He doesn't have 500 goals yet, so.
I don't know. He plays the game right.
Okay.
Obviously a great two-way player, so yeah, no, definitely, I think.
Maybe not first ballot, but he's in there.
I agree. I think he is too. I just was curious if you guys thought.
Yeah.
I mean, 500 goals seems to be like that point where forwards are almost guaranteed to make the Hall of Fame. However, there are guys like Jeremy Roenick who are not in yet, who have 500 goals. So that's why I was kind of curious.
I think
Admittedly, no one likes Jeremy Roenick.
I like his
I
personality.
disagree. I don't mind him. I think he's a tool at times, but like I said, I enjoyed him when he played. So I think that if Jeremy Roenick gets in, it'll not only be on the merit of his play, but also the fact that he's one of the greatest Americans of all time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has more points than Mike Bossy. He has more points than Bobby Hall. He has more points than Bobby Clark.
Wait, I'm sorry. Jeremy Roenick or Marian Hossa?
Jeremy Roenick.
Jeremy Roenick has more points than Mike Bossy?
Yes.
That's insane.
But Mike Bossy had a shortened career because of back injuries. Although, Mike Bossy still holds the record for career goals per game.
Mike Bossy was pretty good at hockey.
He was
I
really
love Mike
good.
Bossy.
Mike Bossy also, I believe, was drafted late because he was similar to like a Luke Robitaille or somebody. Let's see. No, I'm wrong. I'm thinking of somebody else. I mean, he was drafted 15th, but I was thinking of somebody else. Who else? Maybe it was Mike Gardner. I'm sorry. There was somebody else that's a great goal scorer. I'm trying to think of. They was drafted super late because they couldn't skate.
Mike Gardner was a great goal scorer.
Yeah, no, he scored like 20 goals like 18 times or something ridiculous.
Speaking of people who were drafted later because they weren't great skaters, seems actually a pretty interesting thing. Like
That's Jamie Benn's story. Jamie Ben was drafted so late.
John Tavares. The knock against John Tavares was that his skating wasn't very good.
I mean, he still got drafted first overall.
I mean, yes, but
He also had an exemption in the junior league to join when he was like 14.
Yeah.
So.
But that's what I'm saying. Like John Tavares, the year he was drafted, I heard, oh my goodness, John Tavares, what a great player. He's going to go first overall, but, you know, and a player that I'm really familiar with that a lot of the league doesn't seem to be is Mark Stone, who that's the same thing that was held against him for a very long time. He's got excellent hands, excellent quotations hockey sense, but he can't skate. And look where he is right now. He's third in the league in rookie scoring, third in the league in takeaways, behind the aforementioned John Tavares, and I believe he's third off the lead, or fourth, rather, either third or fourth in rookie scoring. So, and he was drafted, I think, in the 6th round or something like that, something ridiculous like that. I just think
he is third in rookie scoring right now.
Yeah. So, I don't know. This argument seems to be, if someone has poor skills here, don't risk it. Whereas I think, scouting-wise, I don't know if you guys read the piece on Hakan Anderson a little bit earlier in the week, where he looks for the best talent that can be matured, and that's where he recommends Ken Holland to look in the later rounds.
You know what else is something that I heard recently as far as looking at talent is guys like Johnny Gaudreau, who's obviously he's leading rookies in scoring right now. Mm-hmm. But he was a guy that was drafted really late, actually, obviously because of his size. However, there's guys that have criticized the NHL of late for not being creative. Like, everybody fits a mold, and then there's Johnny Gaudreau and other people like that. Like, he is unique in that he sees the ice better than people, and he creates and tries things that most people wouldn't try.
I think the reason for that is threefold. One is that if you've got two players with identical skill, the bigger one is the better player.
On paper or in general?
In the game of hockey. If they're literally identical in every respect, except for size. So same speed, same hands, same vision, same whatever you want, except size. The bigger player is better. The exception being... Exactly. The exception being, that's not true. You won't have that happen in the real world. And the second, and I guess a third thing that applies to this is the NHL is a very safe league, and it's a trickle-down effect. The NHL is a very safe league, so the AHL is a very safe league, so junior is a very safe league, and so on and so on. Or at least, if the league itself isn't safe, the mentality seems to be there, play a safe game. And so the players from a young age are taught, play safe, don't be creative, and so the bigger players who can play that game of being safe just because they hit their opponent until they're no longer there, make it because, or are prized just because they have more vision, and therefore smaller players have to turn to other ways of standing out, which happens to be, like be actually skilled. Again, this is a great exaggeration, of course, but the point still stands where that concept of creativity stems from the fact that Johnny Gaudreau just can't outmuscle, say someone like, I don't know, Dustin Byfuglien for the puck, because he's not going to do it. It's simple. Like, the laws of physics are against him here.
Right.
So I think that why size is prized is because it started off with the fact that two identical players in skill, the bigger one's going to be better. changed into bigger is better, and the skill part just somehow got forgotten.
I think it was. There's a guy that recently did an article on the Players Tribune. One of the Russian guys, Igor Larionov, who was talking about the beautiful game of hockey. And I think it was him in an interview that was talking about Russian players back in the day that were so creative and that would never work now. And he spoke about this guy, Sergei Mazhikin, who is one of the best scorers in the KHL. He's a guy that has the talent, and he was drafted originally by the Columbus Blue Jackets, but he has the talent to play in the NHL. But people wouldn't take a risk on him because he's extremely creative, and he doesn't necessarily fit the mold of like the Canadian-American game. But he's a very good hockey player, and that's something that guys like Goudreau, who obviously had a size limitation, but also had a limitation in that they didn't necessarily play the standard game, and they're more creative. And you don't see that as much in today's game because people are so safe about everything.
No, absolutely, and I think that speaks to the fact that the NHL sees itself as a business rather than an entertainment industry, and the business is winning the Stanley Cup, right? Where less than, or I shouldn't say that. The name of the game is to outlast until the Stanley Cup, not to win the Stanley Cup. Because if you're going to win, you're attacking nonstop. If you just want to outlast your opponent, yeah, you play this really safe game.
I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
It's cool.
Just to be like 100% honest, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I don't even know who you people are.
Go off my show then.
That's the concussions talking.
Anyway,
Dude, fuck concussions, man.
we've been out this for almost 4 hours. I think it's time to get off. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
does any? Oh, all right. So, Dave Ball,
Yes.
any closing words?
Fire Croach Berube. That's all I got.
Beautiful. Dave Birdbag.
Yeah, if you're not doing anything Sunday, NCAA.com has a stream for the national championship game for women's. Definitely check it out. It's such a fun game to watch. Like, honestly, I think like college hockey is probably. I love going to college hockey games more than I love going to NHL games personally.
Agreed. Everybody loves a band. Anyway, Ariana.
The Norris Trophy isn't meaningless, and also, I hope that at some deep, dark level of my soul, I would like the Kings to make the playoffs, but who makes them better?
It makes the NHL better, I agree. Hamza, I appreciate you coming on short notice.
No, thanks for having me back. It's good to be back on for the first time in a long time.
Give us your parting words here.
Parting words. Ariana is a terrible person to argue against, and
Thank you.
I revel in her hatred.
Dude, welcome to my world.
All right, good enough. Anyway, I love you all.
Yeah, that was fun.
And I hope you have a good week. And let's all make the playoffs together.
Mm-hmm.
No, wait, Dave Bull. I'm sorry. Let's all make the playoffs except for Dave Bull.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Dude,
Fuck
you can't
you.
deal with us at lunch.
I'm ending this show now.
Nick Eichel, Nick Eichel, Nick Eichel, Nick Eichel, Nick Eichel.
Mid-round pick.
Nick
Mid-round
Eichel.
pick. Mid-round
Fuck you
pick.
guys. Fuck you guys.
You are a loving family.
Tanking is against the rules of sportsmanship, so...
Mid-round pick.
Because our sport is better than your sport, we don't tank in hockey. That's why the
Exactly.
Buffalo Sabres try their hardest every game.
Does anyone else? Hockey is so classy.
Exactly.
Class.
I'm glad we're ending this with so many dank memes. I hope Blake is happy.
Well, stick tabs to everyone here.
Have an up that Duke.
Yeah.
It hurts. All of this hurts.
Hey,
It
at
hurts
least,
like batteries being thrown at your body.
at least you're not. At least you're not Buffalo. Look at it that way.
No, see, that's worse because that's not that bad because they planned this.
At least you're not Edmonton.
Yeah, that's true.
Alright.
As I
Let's
tell
pick
myself
up.
every day, at
Okay,
least I'm
at
not
that
destroyed.
point, with that,
Alright,
I
at least
say
we're not
goodnight.
all Edmonton.
There's
Have
an
a
end
good
plate for all
weekend.
of us. Have a good night, everybody.
Yep.